Woohoo! Hopefully that all worked. Is it? Hopefully it looks okay. I don't know if anyone's actually watching, but it is what it is. Let's see here. I know I forgot to put certain elements into the scene because that would make too much sense to do. We're gonna move that. Where do I want to put this? Here? Corner? Corner seems good. Bam. We'll put it over there. Anyway, hello for everyone who is not watching or is doing other stuff with their Monday night. My name is Kareem Zamir. Put it down at the bottom. And yeah, we had multiple players out this Monday, but I still wanted to have something go live, primarily because we have 3 community challenges going and ongoing. So we still have Safety in Shadows, Hunting for Horns, and Ravon's Got Talent up and coming. I think I did lose the background music all the way, huh? Doesn't take much. How about that? There we go. Something other than my horrible droning voice would be nice. So yeah. So I saw the last time that we reviewed the Dragon book, The Treasury of Dragons. A number of people were saying, hey, I liked the hearing of the things that you said. So yeah, I personally don't think my advice or intuition on a lot of D&D is great for everyone. I think it's very much what's like the term they use for like professional settings, the express opinions of and thereof do not accurately reflect the product therein, but instead the individual. Something like that. Legalese for do what makes you happy at the table. Don't worry about my opinion on that one. But people liked it enough to say, hey, we want to hear other stuff, or maybe make Mondays a more D&D focused night. So yeah, that's what this is. So we have a lovely set that's been made by JJ before she left for her 1-year wedding anniversary. So everything here on screen is all themed off of our base second weight set. So if you look, all of the textures, which one is it? It's this one? Yeah, there we go. So all of the textures and such are all there, and then when we cut it over, all the same framing is still representative, and it's nice, smooth transitioning and all that stuff. Yes, paper crafts. Oh yes, I also have chat open for obvious reasons, I think. But yeah, also Ted, what are you doing? You're supposed to be building a computer. Go build your computer, boy. But yeah, so I thought let's just do regular talking stuff. I think my goal is to always have a book review whenever new books come out. There's a couple of indie books I've been looking at. I think it's something that I want to do just because personally I have a lot of investment and kind of scope that's focused a lot on the DM's Guild side of things. So there's often a lot of like third-party review products. A lot of friends in the community for Dungeons and Dragons will pitch me different kind of stuff that they're looking to put on DM's Guild or this and that. I think my name's on like a couple of the Zanus ones for like more of like the lewd play stuff. But yeah, I think there's also a few adventures that have like Kareem Zamir listed on them now. But any hoozle, I like enough of that content, so I'll probably look at a few books there on DM's Guild. Maybe we'll do like an intro to DM's Guild or something like that. It's just something where I think it has a very good, as Matt Colville will say, signal to noise ratio that allows you to get the information you're looking for without having to deal with a lot of the white noise and a lot of the background music and that. It kind of just gives you the again, as you will say, all killer, no filler. For a lot of it. DM's Guild also tends to be a lot of more amateurish products, which usually has a lot of negative connotations as it applies to players, but it has a lot of positive connotations as it applies to dungeon masters. So that's something I'll probably explore moving forward, is either picking up books or the like homebrew content from DM's Guild, different types of adventures people have already written or have gone into, and kind of break them down and show you kind of like where my mindset is as a DM. If people are interested in that, that would be cool. If they are not, no worries. We could always just put on literally anything else. There's really no rules as to what has to happen and what can't happen. So that's always the fun part about streaming, is you can make the content that you like, or the people that like you like. So yeah, just got to find the people like me, right? Simple as. So tonight I thought just keeping it simple, real easy thing to do. I wanted to pick the Ranger just to kind of do like a breakdown of. I know a lot of people, Kareem Zamir's Crap Guide to Ranger, kind of in a way. I'm definitely not as good at it as Joe Cat. I'm not an animator or an artist. I just have opinions and a microphone. So I don't think that, yeah, honestly. Watch the Joe Cat one. We could put that on here. Who cares? No, the Joe Cat one is also very, very good just for a quick intro to the class. But the reason why I wanted to talk about Ranger specifically is Ranger since the dawn of 5th edition. The dawn of 5th edition. God, what has it been? Has it been like 4 or 5 years now, right? I think the edition's been out quite a while. I actually have this kind of a goofy thing that I keep and collect now. I'm up to 3 of them. I'm going to keep trying to collect them as often as possible whenever I see them crop up in like dice sets on eBay. But I have, you can't even see it. Goodness, I have to get my lighting right. So I've got, this is a book with like grass growing out of it, and it's these like tan and green lettered D&D dice. These were giveaway dice for people who were DMing when 5th edition was being playtested, which is really cool. You usually got 1 per convention when you would go run the pre-gen module for 5th edition. I earned mine the hard way because back when 5th edition was getting started, the 2 that I'd gotten from 2 folks who were the venture captains for Pathfinder. I know, another game system, how dare I? But I was actually a DM for quite a long while for Pathfinder, and I used to do a lot of the adventure modules, and they have a lot of really cool ideas for organized play for for Pathfinder. So yeah, it was just really fun to do that. So my thing was, if you ran, I think it was like 3 or 4 slots, which were like each slot was about like a 3-hour table. I think for a while, I think that's how Christie was giving them away back in the day. I'm not sure on everyone's names anymore. It's been too long. I know Dom used to be the one who used to register everything with the convention, and then we'd get a convention hall and we'd all show up to play Pathfinder. We would run PFS, Pathfinder Society. So yeah, I signed up for enough slots with my friend at the time, and ended up getting 2 of these. And then one of the nicest gifts that I'd gotten from Colt Honeycutt was he found somebody who had another one, who had been given 1 for the playtest for 5th edition. I've always liked them because they have green numbers, and I just like the symbol a lot because it's an open book with like it's like seeds growing out of it. So I've always really liked it as like it's the beginning things. Like as a DM, you're going to grow these players, you're going to grow these people. But yeah, so just fun stuff. I'm like seeing stuff on my desk, obviously. 5e playtesting started in 2012, 2013, went official in 2014. So 7 years. Good Lord, I'm old. I guess that's where we're going to go for it. I'm the youngest, oldest DM ever. And my back hurts. What other horrible idioms can I get into? But yeah, so when the playtest started, a lot of people were very concerned about the Ranger class. It was one of the things that when we weren't sure, I personally love 4th edition. I think 4th edition is a great combat-focused edition. If you want to have a group of people that don't have to worry about actual factual roleplay, you want a lot of safety nets, you want a lot of press button do thing, I think 4th edition is great, especially if you have new players that are getting into the games. They're getting into roleplay, like baby's first roleplay. I think 4th edition translates a lot of the blah blah into gameable content for people who are into video games. So we were looking at it from playing Pathfinder Society, me and my group of friends at the time, and kind of picking apart 5th edition and seeing if 5th edition was going to be something that was actually worthwhile, or if it was just going to be something else that Wizards was throwing out to kind of rival Pathfinder Society and Pathfinder in general. Back in about 2014's right, yeah, that'd be about right. 2014, 2015, many people who are in the know-how, a lot of people did start with 5th edition as their game. But back in those days, the biggest thing was Pathfinder. Pathfinder was the 3.5.99999 version of Dungeons and Dragons that Paizo created. So it pretty much took the open source gaming license for 3.5, built upon it, and now they have their whole entire universe through Paizo. Which is tremendous. Some of their lore is very, very good. Their interpretations of a number of the fantasy races that we know and love are all very, very good. I think Pathfinder goblins are some of the best designed cultures that they've ever put into a game. And it was a game that had a lot of depth. I mean, the rules for grappling are like 2 pages. So it was like, if you did anything in those games, you knew exactly what it was going to do. So people who were into the rules were like, this is the way it works because the rules, which is nice. So even looking early on, when we looked and reviewed it was even the player's handbook, 5th edition released initially as oh goodness, I think it was like a 20 to 30 page document with just like some player rules and some DM rules and some like very basic rudimentary things, which then eventually became the SRD. And then that became like probably like what, 100-page document maybe. So you had everything in the kind of like the open source. And even from then, we looked and reviewed all the classes and we were like, hey, this game looks like it's actually something other than just combat, and it's not focused solely for a virtual tabletop environment, because realistically 4th edition was. 4th edition was a kind of a company mindset from what we could tell, which was players don't want to play in person anymore, and the LGS experience is going the way of the dinosaur, which we've been saying that for 10 years now. Even Magic the Gathering is like, hey, we have Arena now, but people still want to play cards in person. It's just a thing that we want to do. And so that's kind of where we looked at it initially. Was 5th edition looked to be a return to form for Wizards of the Coast. It looked like be a way that we would get players back at the table. We'd have Living Forgotten Realms again, or we'd have Living Greyhawk, we didn't know at the time. But as we reviewed it, the one thing that always stood out was the Ranger class. It didn't stand out because we went, oh man, what a great humper. Anyone who's played 5th edition, anyone who started with 5th edition will know the Ranger has and still has this like weird stigma even now of being debatably the worst class in the game, I think is like the way we have to look at it. The Ranger has always been a bit of a mishmash. It's always been the Aragorn class, I want to be Driz Duerden, or I want to be the Returned Sun King that will always find the path and will always know the markings and know a little bit of magic and summon beasts and things, but I'm not as good as the Druid, and I'm not as good at fighting as the Fighter, and I'm not as good as punching as the Monk, and I am not as good of a healer as a Cleric, but I do a lot, right? Go between Ranger and the Monk, depending on the person, but more often Ranger. It's very true. Early Monk renditions were rough. The reason why is because the subclass of the Monk was very, very conservative. I can get into that one day, I'm sure. It mostly comes down to the initial subclasses for the Monk being lackluster, but the Monk still doing everything the Monk does. I mean, we looked at the Dragon Monk last time we had one of these little talkie talks, and yeah, that's not a weak class at all. I'd be afraid of that class if anyone played it at my table. But the Monk arguably, I think, gets more shit on than anything else in the game through 5th edition. It is a hybrid class. It is a number of things we'll talk about here in just a second. What the hell is... Okay, never mind. Spam caller, hopefully. I'm loving all the spam calling, and recently there's been a group of wrestlers that have been like trolling spam callers, and so now I'm kind of like slowly getting on the train of like actually answering all my phone calls to answer spam callers and kind of going from there. But yeah, so that's kind of like a brief history of a lead into, again, cool to see you, Whiskey. Cool to see you, Ted. I might be playing to an audience of 2. That's fine. Again, the hope here is that we still fill the time slot so that people can redeem their points if they want to for any of the ongoing community challenges and still earn points. If you're building towards a quest from afar, if you're building towards any of the other stuff, that way we just have something here and make sure that it is D&D centric, since that's, I think, Whiskey, you actually requested that. So here you go. So yeah, let's talk about Rangers. Rangers, we have the entire class identity of Rangers. We know more or less what Rangers are. For further context, we'll go to Google. We'll go to... Actually, we won't go to Google. I don't want to go to Google. What do I want to go to? I don't know. I want to go to anything. I think I'm good. I think we're just going to stay here. So, things we think of when we think Ranger, right? We think of a woodsman. We think of a hunter. We think of longbow. We think of arrows. We think of swords. We think of a pet, a tamer of the wilds. Ranger initially was, again, a hybrid class meant to incorporate elements of both the fighter and a pseudo scout, almost like a rogue. That was the initial design for it way, way, way back in the day. I think God, what first one would be second edition, probably. So the mindset there was that we would get a little bit of magic, we would get like the tiniest little droplets of it, and then we would get benefits. We'd get more martial prowess, we'd get the ability to stealth, we'd get like little things, but the primary focus has always been tracking, trailing, seeking, finding, doing the ranger. Yeah. We can say flowery imagery, but we're talking Aragorn, we're talking Driz Duerden, we're talking early Dragonlance characters, most of them even starting as knights. They are still wielding short swords, scimitars, longbows, things of that sort. We think ranger, we think travelers, we think people that are kind of jack of all trades without being a bard and no charisma. So that's always a fun one. So let's get into it. What is ranger? D&D Beyond says rangers are rough and wild looking human stalks alone in the shadows of the trees hunting orcs, which is just like, I'm going to pause right there immediately. John Francis Smith, the greatest ranger. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That is fair. That's fair. Poor Yogi Bear. I do kind of love and hate a lot of the early D&D Beyond stuff. And the reason being is that, as many of you guys know, and I've kind of made no small mention of it, D&D is slowly moving away from any type of classism, any type of racial identity. They want to remove that from their game. They want to remove the nomenclature of kind of like racial bias or anything of that sort for any of the races. But then they continue to write stories that have bias, right? So they're trying to have the cake, eat it too. I've expressed concerns about it. Everyone else has. It's kind of funny to me in a way that we continue to live in a world where Wizards of the Coast wants to improve their game as far as for how it is perceived by folks on the internet and dignitaries of our time or whatever you want to call people. There are a number of like negative connotations I can assign to these folks, but whatever. I just find it funny that we are trying so hard, yet our first description of a ranger is hunting orcs down that are planning to raid a nearby farm. Clutching a short sword in each hand, they become a whirlwind of steel, cutting down one enemy after another. It's like, cool. So like, we don't want to code orcs to be horrible, murdering, hard R words, but we are going to tell you that the ranger is going to hunt and kill them because they want to raid farms. Off to a great start, Wizards. So after tumbling away from a cone of freezing air, an elf finds her feet and draws back her bow to loose an arrow at the white dragon. Shrugging off the wave of fear that emanates from the dragon like cold of its breath, she sends another arrow after another to find the gaps between the dragon's thick scales. Holding his hand high, a half-elf whistles to the hawk circling above him, calling birds to his side, whispering instructions in Elvish. He points to the owlbear he's been tracking and sends the hawk to distract the creature while he readies his bow. From the far bustle of cities and towns, past the hedges that shelter, the most distant farms from the terrors of the wild, amid dense-packed trackless forests, across wide and empty plains, rangers keep their unending watch. And thus their watch is ended. Okay, there we go. The thing is like, this is so for a lot of DMs, right? A lot of folks in my line of work, which is weird to say, other people I'm rubbing shoulders with who are much better at this than me, will often tell players to read the forewords, right? It is very commonplace for us, and I think it is a failing of many DMs to not handhold as much as we should when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, especially for new players that are getting into the game. More often than not, your friend wants to run, you get invited to play, they say have a character made, or we will do character creation together, and they advise you that before character creation, you should go into your player's handbook and you should read all the classes, whatever you can about them, and then go from there. If all you do is read this first excerpt, you have a very poor idea of what this class does. You think it's a dervish, you think that it can survive dragons and shrug off ice, it can whistle to a hawk that can then distract enemies and do stuff, which it can. Animal Companion is a spell and all that. Your Beastmaster Rangers, we'll get into that as well. But it's like, it's just funny that they fill it with a lot of flowery language and not a lot of like what the class does. So we get that they are deadly hunters, warriors of the wilderness. So what the game thinks, so we're going to go over what Wizards of the Coast is giving you as a player, as what your expectations, your preparation of expectations are meant to be set at, and then we'll go into what in actuality your role is from playing a ranger. If that makes any sense, cool. If it doesn't, I'm so sorry. They claim they are warriors of the wilderness, specialize in hunting monsters that threaten the edges of civilization, humanoid raiders, rampaging beasts and monstrosities, terrible giants, and deadly dragons. Everything in the game. They learn to track their quarry as a predator does, moving stealthily through the wilds and hiding themselves in the brush and the rubble. Rangers focus their combat training on techniques that are particularly useful against their specific favored foes. Not anymore. We'll get into that in a second. Thanks to their familiarity with the wilds, Rangers acquire the ability to cast spells that harness nature's power as much as a druid does. Their spells, like their combat abilities, emphasize speed, stealth, and the hunt. Ranger's talents and abilities are honed with deadly focus on grim tasks protecting the borderlands. Neat. Again, lots of flowery stuff. It kind of hints on, hey, favorite foe. It hints on harnessing nature's power. It doesn't do it as much as a druid does, but it is at least harping on it. Independent adventurers. I've read this probably 5 times. I tell everyone, never take this advice, ever. This is not true. Though a ranger might make a living as a hunter, a guide, or a tracker, a ranger's true calling is to defend the outskirts of civilization from the ravages of monsters and humanoid hordes that press in from the wild. In some places, rangers gather in secretive orders or join forces with druidic circles. Many rangers, though, are independent almost to a fault. This is the worst line leading into this class that every new player reads this and assumes they can split the party. I will tell you again, never split the party. You only ever want to have a decisive split in tactical choices as a group, because we are here to play as a group, when there are multiple players engaged in a split, right? So if you have a party of, on average, you're going to have a party of 4 to 5. If 3 people want to do something and 2 other people want to go off by themselves, I hope those 2 people can heal. Thankfully, the ranger can, but this line here telling you that you're going to be independent is a big no-no, like a big, big, big no-no to me. It's just criminal in a way, because a lot of what I like to discuss about classes for people, or rather with people, especially newer players, is that the pre-written flowery language that leads you into what a class is gives you a mental picture of who you should be at the table, and to many initial players it does inform the mindset of how they should be acting or role-playing at the table. So in this instance, if you read this, you're independent to a fault, so you don't need everyone else. I'm a tough, edgy edgelord, and I don't need friends. But you do, because you'll die. So knowing that when a dragon or band of orcs attacks, a ranger might be the first and possibly last line of defense. You're super good and super important. Good to make people feel well, just set expectations accordingly. This fierce independence makes rangers well suited to adventuring, since they are accustomed to life from afar, from the comforts of a dry bed and a hot bath. Faced with city-brewed adventurers who grouse and whine about the hardships of the wild, rangers respond with some mixture of amusement, frustration, and compassion, but they quickly learn that other adventurers who carry their own weight in a fight against civilization's foes are worth any extra burden. Kind of reads like a barbarian. Coddled city folk might not know how to feed themselves or find fresh water in the wild, but they make up for it in other ways. Again, I kind of find it's funny that they're like the other party members definitely want to have a bed and be comforting, and it's like, you have a monk who has forsaken all worldly possessions, you have a warlock who sold their soul in some Faustian bargain, you have a barbarian that is literally a mountain tribe warrior of rage and spirit. But yeah, no, all of them, if they don't get their 8 hours of sleep in a bed, what a bunch of losers, because you're the ranger. It's like, all right, well, you know, independently, really cool when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. Okay. Anywho, so creating a ranger. As you create your ranger character, consider the nature and training that gave you your particular abilities. Did you train with a single mentor? All this is roleplay stuff, but it does kind of lead the way into this, right? So wandering the wilds until you've mastered your ranger ways. Did you leave your apprenticeship, or was your mentor slain? Perhaps by some kind of monster that became your favorite enemy. Or perhaps you learned your skills as part of a band of rangers affiliated with the Druidic Circle, trained to the mystic paths, as well as wilderness lore. You might be self-taught, a recluse who learned combat skills, tracking, even magical connection to nature through necessity and surviving the wilds. Not a bad lead-in to what your expectations should be as a class at this point. Again, harping on favorite enemy, it not being a big of a thing anymore, but we'll get into that. Yeah. What's the source of your particular hatred for a certain enemy? Did a monster kill someone you loved to destroy your home village? Are you an anime protagonist? Or did you see too much of the destruction of these monsters cause and commit yourself to reining in their depredations? Is your adventuring career a continuation of your work protecting the Borderlands or a significant change? So the reason why they keep bringing the Borderlands up, one of the best adventures ever that features Rangers is called Keep on the Borderlands. Tremendous adventure from 3rd edition, I believe. And I believe it comes back as Assault on the Borderlands later on. Super fun to play through, but it's also something I think that they always want to point at their old successes and kind of be like, look at that. Or a significant change. What made you join up with a band of adventurers? Do you find it challenging to teach new allies the ways of the wild, or do you welcome relief from solitude that they offer? Anime pro tag. We gotta be anime pro tags, man. I'm gonna talk a lot, so I'm gonna drink a lot of water. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Is like, a lot of this does build up as like, be a loner, be racist against one exact thing that you want to kill, and be an asshole. So it's like, all right, not really setting people up to succeed, but what are we going to do? So there's suggestions for a quick build. You can make Ranger quickly by following these suggestions. Make Dex your highest ability score, because it's the best score in the game. Followed by Wisdom. Some Rangers who focus on weapon fighting make Strength higher than Dexterity. Not true at all. That is a factual lie. Second, choose the Outlander background, because initially, Outlander gave you all of the abilities that they didn't give the class. So if you didn't take Outlander, you were immediately screwed, right? Let's actually look at that real quick, because I love this. I love it so much. So Outlander, we'll look at backgrounds real quick. Here we are. So back in the day, when you first started, this was the thing you had to take. And it was something that we harped on a lot of stuff. So you grew up in the wilds, yada, 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 right? So just by taking this background, you immediately get Athletics and Survival as trained skills. These are your 2 trained skills up here, right? So you're already getting a Wisdom skill and a Strength skill. Good for you. You're getting a tool proficiency. You're getting an extra language, because a lot of Ranger builds did not come with the bonus language. You got the language of your favorite enemy. We'll get into that in a second. You got a staff, a hunting trap, which was one of the only ways to get one to start level 3 or level 1. A trophy of an animal you killed. A set of Traveler's clothes, and bonus 10 GP. Good for you. The big thing about it was not about any of these features. It was not about any of the cool RP moments. It all came down to this. Wanderer. Just flat out getting this immediately made you more rangery than other Rangers, and it made no goddamn sense that this didn't exist just on the Ranger. You have an excellent memory for maps and geography, and you can always recall the general layout of terrain, settlements, and other features around you. In addition, you can both find food and fresh water for yourself and up to 5 people each day, provided that the land offers berries, small game, water, and so forth. So not only do you get the ability to recall the general layout of areas, not by just being a Ranger, you have to be an Outlander. An Outlander's a better Ranger than a Ranger. A Barbarian can be an Outlander. And if the Ranger isn't also an Outlander, the Barbarian will do better at being a Ranger than the Ranger. Because at this point, you now never have to worry about food ever again. That's what this says, right? You're giving a game ability, because it's a feature, right? If you give a game ability a feature, then you're literally taking that away from what could be an RP moment, right? You no longer, and a lot of players did this as well, you no longer had to roll survival, you no longer do perception or look around or investigate. You could just say, I press the button, food comes out for 5 people. We call up Uber Eats, 4 deer run by, because the ability says I get that. Sure, that's fine. Speed it along. If you want to run a game, it's all up to you on how to do that. The thing of it is that if this is an ability you're going to hand out to anyone who wants to take it as a background feature, this should have just been packaged in with the Ranger to begin with, and we should have just moved on with our lives, like flat out. So early on, if you weren't an Outlander Ranger, people immediately were very curious about it, just because the Wanderer feature was legitimately broken. Like, I guess it's the nice way to say it, right? So yeah, your Barbarian is an Outlander. Because it's the background that gives you the best ability. That's why they're that. Go for it. Anyway, back to the actual Ranger class. So that's what they say for a quick build. They are mostly right. I think if you follow that, you will build a character that is functional and mathematically will work, because dexterity tends to be good. So let's break into actually creating a Ranger, right? So we have the Ranger table. It's the thing we've seen a million times. If you are, no one here is new, so we're not going to worry about if you're new to this. This, that, and the other. At first level, you get Favorite Enemy. Second level, you get Natural Explorer, Fighting Styles, Spellcasting, your Archetype, which will break down the archetypes as they are available here. Hold on a second. Well, that's always fun. I don't think my volume is high enough on my computer for my music, so my headset killed. Let's do that, and we'll turn this down on your guys' side so it's not too much. So I've got music on my ear, but my headset died, and I was like, I thought I didn't charge it, but it's still green. All right, so we'll talk about the archetypes, ability score improvements. You get extra attack, so if you're breaking down just the class in general, getting extra attack at 5th level means that you're on par with the fighter the entire time. You also get a fighting style, even though your options are curbed and limited compared to the fighter, as they should be. You're going to get Favorite Enemy, Natural Explorer improvements. Two things now that I think modern Rangers and people who are going to start making classes moving forward will no longer be taking a part of, simply because the options presented for optional class features from Tasha's immediately make the class much better, in my opinion. It makes it a more generalized focus. So rather than having a very narrow focus, you have a general focus, which is you just do things better than most people, which is good. It allows you to roleplay and change up how you're able to do it. We'll get into why things are good, why things are bad. You get Natural Explorer, you get all this stuff. Pretty much anything after about 8th level is when I just stopped paying attention to a class. This is probably a bad mindset to me. But most campaigns, as I've said, most campaigns don't survive past 10th to like 13th at the very top for me. If you want to run a 20th level campaign and you want to build your build around Foe Slayer and get all those cool abilities, that is awesome. Have fun. We'll top of the hat to you. Wish you the best. But for most of us, this is what we're going to look at for the Ranger. Right around like about 8th level, 8th to 9th level is about like the top of the mark for us, right? So at 8th level, you're getting an ability score improvement. You're getting Land Stride, which we'll talk about. And then you're going to get to the 9th level. You'll get your proficiency bonus of +4. And you'll get your spell slots. So you'll get up to 3rd level spellcasting as a Ranger. For this reason, and for what we're kind of... oh yeah, I did have the headset issue too. For this reason and kind of what we're talking about tonight and focusing on, I'm not going to be covering how cool 4th level spells are, and I'm not going to be covering how dope 5th level spells are for Rangers. A lot of it comes down to the kind of annoyance of it. You're not getting a 4th level spell slot because you're a quarter caster, which is to say that you earn your spell slots at a much slower rate than other characters and classes. You're a half caster in Ranger. You're a quarter caster in Arcane Trickster and Eldritch Knight, and I think Artificers might be quarter casters. I haven't looked at them hard enough. I have a build set up for it, but it's mostly a have fun and tongue-in-cheek build, not a legitimate build. I have something in my eye, and I apologize. All right, so for that reason, just to preface it, yeah, they get 1/3 casters, but they get cantrips. So yeah, they're fancy like that, because they get a robot bud and a gun. For that reason, I'm not going to discuss and break down a lot of the higher level stuff. We'll go over it, but I will always say this to everyone who wants to get into Dungeons and Dragons. Do not go into building a character wanting to play with all of the big end level and end game things. A lot of players tunnel vision in and they try to review everything about this class as much as they can, when in actuality, you're only realistically going to see up to about the 9th to ish level, right? You're going to be playing everything highlighted here, level 1 to level 9, for a much longer period of time in most adventures than any other thing. I'm pretty sure, let me see here actually. Let me switch over to here. I'm pretty sure, let's see if we can do this real quick. Let's look at adventures really quick, right? Cursor Straud, one of the best adventures of all time. Don't at me. Let's see here. Forward, can we at least look at that? No, that's not what I want. I want the gameable content from this. Running the adventure. Yeah, here we go. Ready? So Curse of Strahd, one of the best adventures they've written for 5th edition. is a story of Gothic horror presented here in Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game for adventure of party of 4 to 6 adventurers, levels 1 to 10. Cool. So again, one of the top 3 adventures that you can play in this system expects you to not get past level 10, right? The game does support endgame content that is super great, but as you know, and all you guys watching here on Second Wake, all the players hit level 7. We've been playing for a year, right? There are a number of Monty Hall style DMs, and that is a completely viable and fun way to play, that will hand out XP and magic items like they're candy. It's a game show. That's what we call it, Monty Hall. And they'll hand out all kinds of stuff like that. But as we look at even some of the kind of introduction to much of the adventures, even some of the bigger ones where you're fighting giants at the end of it, I think they only expect you to go until about, let's see here. Oh, they had it all nice and neat in the other one. They had it all nice and neat in the other thing, and now they don't have it. Whatever. I'm pretty sure this caps out at like level 12. If I'm not. Oh, here we go. Here's our chart. There we go. So our chart is the Great Upheaval, levels 1 through 4. Rumblings, level 5. The Savage Frontier at level 6. The Chosen Path at level 7. Bunch of different things you can do at level 8. Level 9 is the Hold of the Storm Giants. You're fighting Storm Giants at level 9. Caught in the Tentacles at level 9. Or the Doom of the Desert at level 10. Right? So yet another big adventure people talk about because we're going to get to fight freaking giants. High CR monsters. Adventure caps at level 10. Cool. We'll pick one more randomly off the board just so we can get the point across because I like to hammer home things. We'll do, I think Baldur's Gate goes a little bit. I don't know. I'm actually playing this one. Here we go. So we'll do adventure summary for our delightful Rime of the Frost Maiden, right? We have the whole list in here. Adventure optimized for 4 to 6 characters. The players are heroes. Da-da-da-da-da. I don't know if they actually... I don't want to look into this too much because I don't want to actually read this any further than I already have when I originally did it. Here we go. So the Chapter 7, The Doom of Yithrin, for characters of level 9 or higher. That's it. These are all fun adventures, all the pre-writtens. Wizards of the Coast expects your character to be no higher than 9th to 10th level. So, for that reason, we will not be going over in detail any of the high-level stuff. Again, the only thing of relevance whenever they print a 4th or 5th level Ranger spell or a 4th or 5th level Paladin spell that will ever have in-game consequences for you and your party is if your Bard decides to take Arcane Secrets and steals one of those spells from you. Because they'll get to play with it at 10th level, you'll get to play with it at 13th level, and the adventure ends at 10th. So yeah. I think that's kind of where we're at for it then. Alright, cool. The horse is dead. We've beaten it many times. The horse has been beaten to Nay Land. So we'll move on. So what do we get for Rangers? We get a D10 per Ranger hit dice. We get 10 plus our con modifier for first level, of course. Our hit points. We are proficient in light armor, medium armor, and shields. We have simple weapons and martial weapons, which is all weapons, effectively. There is no exotic weapon proficiency in 5th edition. Tools, no tools. But hey, if you take Outlander, you do get a tool set. You see how it starts? This is how it starts. Saving throws are strength and dex, the 2 physical ones, because why not? Skills, you get animal handling, athletics, insight, investigation, nature, perception, stealth, and survival. These days, you want a slice of banana bread cake? Sure, that'd be great. Thanks. Getting your baker's tools. But yeah, these days, all your skills allow you to effectively pick and choose a lot of your backgrounds as well. You can pick and choose the ability, pick and choose the skills that you get. Everything from animal handling or any of the other ones, you can always pick up. I don't have a recommended option for skills for any class. Effectively, as they continue to smooth the sides out from the various adventures for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, we continue to see that every class can be anything. You want to be a tough, non-talking, punchy guy, you can do that in every single class, including wizard. You can be a scary muscle wizard if you really want to. So your skills are no longer the way to inform who you will be. Instead, they are an option to take on for who you want to be. And I think that's a very important feature of the game at this point. Equipment, we can start with scale mail or leather armor. You can take 2 short swords or 2 simple melee weapons. Dungeoneer's pack or explorer's pack, longbow, quiver, 20 arrows, yada yada. All right, so let's go into like some of these actual class features. I will say this: favorite enemy, natural explorer, and I think it's like favored terrain. I think it's favored terrain are all probably going to get replaced. We'll talk about why. On its way. I'm worried now. I'm very worried. Ted, what have you done? So yeah, they're probably going to get replaced. We'll read them for the initial, and then we'll talk about why they're bad. Most people know the reason why they're bad, but we want to be objective, and we don't want to be superfluous. We want to instead focus on the factual reasons behind the design choices and issues we ran into inherent with the class upon launch, and then how they fixed it. So we kind of do the what's the Aaron from Game Grumps thing? This is why Mega Man was good, and this is why Mega Man was poopy bad. Here's why this was good for Legend of Zelda. Here's why it's a poopy bad thing. So favorite enemy, poopy bad thing. Why? You have to pick one thing. We're gonna read it. So beginning first level, you have significant experience in studying, tracking, hunting, and even talking about a certain type of enemy. You choose a type of favorite enemy. We're already off to a bad start. Aberrations, beasts, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, giants, monstrosities, oozes, plants, or undead. Alternatively, you can select 2 humanoid races, such as gnolls or orcs, as favorite enemies. The alternatively on that is a list of like 40 different things you could pick. Probably more than that even. But for whatever you pick, you have advantage on wisdom survival checks to track your favorite enemies, as well as on intelligence checks to recall information about them. A thing that no one ever does ever. It is very rare when you get a roll of intelligence checks from anybody ever. It comes down to your DM most of the time. There's no skill or button that says to do this or do that. So when you gain the feature, you learn one language of your choice that is spoken by your favorite enemies, so you can tell them to fuck themselves in their native language. It's very important. You weren't allowed to get just anything. You had to, of course, get the one so you can flip them the bird. So you can choose one additional favorite enemy as well as an associated language at 6th level and 14th level. As you gain levels, your choices should reflect the type of monsters you've encountered on your adventures, right? So here's the good thing, bad thing, right? If the goal was to have it reflect the monsters that you fight on your adventure, this should be a reflexive ability. This should be something that, and we've argued it ad nauseum. You'll see it, why it got changed later on. The reason why this is objectively bad is that you are a player at 1st level. Instead of a language, you get one phrase. All you can say all languages. There you go. I speak every language, and my language is fuck you. It's the only thing I can say. So, reasons why this is objectively bad. For 2 reasons, we'll do the in-game reason and we'll do the out-of-game reason. In-game reason, it is bad because it locks in a player into a pre-level 1, pre-campaign choice before they are allowed, realistically, before they are technically allowed information about what they will be encountering on this adventure. Yes, the adventure could be called Curse of Straud. We know there's a vampire on the cover. Taking favorite enemy vampire, probably not that bad. However, for anyone who's played Curse of Straud, there are notoriously not a lot of vampires in that adventure. There's a shit ton of fucking hags and spiders and werewolves and regular wolves and elementals and literally everything else. Not a hell of a lot. There's a vampire. Like, there are vampires spawn later on, but there are notoriously few vampires in this adventure. So even if you're trying to be cheeky, you'll be locked at level 1 all the way up through that. It then takes you all the way to 6th level to be able to have an informed decision. So you've now played through half or more of the entire adventure. Remember, we're basing this off the idea that all adventures and all of adventuring will end around level 10, give or take, right? Even homebrew campaigns typically will end or fall apart in a glorious fashion right around level 10. It's when things start becoming not to say more complicated, but because players have more access to a number of abilities that make the game and basic core functions of the game irrelevant, a number of DMs oftentimes will fail to adapt to the changing wave in the way in which you have to review the game. No longer do you have to have them roll for travel across overland fields. The wizard has teleportation circle. No longer do you have to do half of what's in the game because they have access to wealth or money or items that will then make these core base features that they were struggling with at level 3 no longer an issue. The ranger eventually does also help and validate those early level struggles at later levels, but early on you have the in-game locking of a choice that you have to make pre-level 1 that will then haunt you for the rest of the campaign. And many people have probably seen it in 5th edition of, oh, okay, well, can I get my favorite enemy? Does favorite enemy count here? You said he's half orc. I have orcs. Can favorite enemy? Can I favorite enemy this diplomacy check? No. We're really sorry that they gave you a toy that doesn't work. This would obviously be improved if you could change it every long rest. We're way past at this point. They decided to replace it wholesale. We're good. The other reason why this is poopy bad is kind of the out-of-game idea of meta. Knowledge meta is the kind of bigger thing. Out of all the classes in Dungeons and Dragons, you want the ranger or the person playing the ranger to be invested in the realism of your world, right? So if you look at the types of players that we can go over, there are players that will, of course, play the game and look at it as a game at all times. And they will say, this is a game. I am not taking damage. My character is taking damage. I am separated from the experience. In my personal opinion, when you are choosing to play ranger, you want to have a sense that the danger is real, right? It is life or death because all of the choices that you should be given from your DM as a ranger should be life and death. There are, of course, easy changes, but if a DM gives you a choice to look at through a bushel of berries and some of them are poison and some of them are not, you can't just be like, oh, well, whatever, I rolled low, so I'm not going to eat those berries then. Like, no, you play it up and someone gets food poisoning and that creates dramatic tension. It creates a good moment and it creates things you can tell about, oh, damn, we gave Jeff those poison berries that one time. There's just a lot more you want the ranger to be invested in from an ideal for what the class should be. And I feel like it immediately pulls you out at level 1 if you have to have a rule 0 conversation with your DM and you have to go, well, what's in the campaign, bud? Are there goblins? Because I want to take goblins, but if I take goblins, I don't get to take beasts, and I don't get to take celestials, and I don't get to take whatever. So, like, one of the very first things you'll run into is there is... What is the name of this adventure? We're going to look at it real quick. It is... Where is it at here? Not Tales of the Yawning Portal. I want to say it's Princes of the Apocalypse, it might be. Oh, goodness, I'm bad right now for not remembering which ones they are. I want to say it's Princes of the Apocalypse, which you start in the Underdark, if I remember right. Oh no, it's Out of the Abyss. That's the one I'm looking at. So in Out of the Abyss, in this adventure here, you actually start as captured slaves in the slave pen. Not to spoil anything, but here you go. Go buy it. $29.99 online. It is, again, another adventure. However, it is one of the longer adventures, letting you go all the way up to 15th level, which is super cool if you're looking to run later into the game. It is 256 pages, yada, yada, yada. The cool thing about this one, though, is that you start in a drow slave pen, and you and your friends all are introduced to a huge cast of characters. It is a massive undertaking for a number of DMs. Maybe I'll do that one day. Maybe I'll break down all the pre-written adventures, because I've read and or played in almost all of them at this point. It's super cool. It's super flavorful, super fun. But the first things that happen to you are demons attack at level 1. And that's it. So if you're a super cool kid and caboodle and you're a ranger and you don't have a rule 0 talk and your DM doesn't tell you that little spoilerific fact, then you pick probably drow or elves to hate on. And then demons happen and you go, that's my whole adventure until 6th level. Boy howdy. Poopy bad. This is the other big thing, and it's part of the reason why people have discredited Ranger, is because one of their core abilities just doesn't work. The thing of it is, too, is that, like, at the end of the day, gaining advantage on survival checks or intelligence checks are just not game relevant, and there's not a lot of things that honestly get you anything out of those skills being used. So when the ability finally does trigger, it actually doesn't do literally anything other than grant you their language, which is good. It's good to have someone who speaks giant in a campaign about giants. Go figure. So with that, we go into Natural Explorer. This is another one that is a point of contention. So Natural Explorer, you're particularly familiar with one type of natural environment and are adept at traveling and surviving in such regions. Choose a type of favorite terrain: Arctic, coast, desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, or the Underdark. When you make an intelligence or wisdom check related to your favorite terrain, your proficiency bonus is doubled if you are using the skill you're proficient in, which doesn't count as expertise. So if you're an expertise later on, this will double a double, which is kind of cool. So you'll get to be like, it's 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus my modifier, which is pretty neat. While traveling for an hour or more in your favorite terrain, you gain the following benefits. Difficult terrain doesn't slow your group's travel. Good. Your group can't become lost except by magical means. Amazing. Even when you are engaged in another activity while traveling, such as foraging, navigating, or tracking, you remain alert to danger. Tremendous. If you're traveling alone, you can move stealthily at a normal pace. Why are you splitting the party? When you forage, you find twice as much food as you normally would. Again, this is immediate irrelevant ability because they want you to take Outlander. Great. While tracking other creatures, you also learn their exact number, their sizes, and how long ago they passed through the area. The only good piece on this entire thing, unfortunately. Difficult terrain. So like the first half of this is kind of based off of the old chainmail idea and overland travel rules that we used to run into for original Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and then later on into second edition. It then was prevailed and kind of grandfathered into third, and it became a thing that a number of dungeon masters would worry so very, very much about overland travel rules and what you're finding and encountering on the road. So it kind of boiled down to that. Modern, current D&D, Pathfinder 2, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, many of our current RPGs want to get to the next event, right? We are effectively traveling to get to the next plot point. We're traveling to get to solving a mystery. We're traveling to find the thing that will give us the MacGuffin clue to find the dungeon to go do the exploring thing. So a lot of DMs will hand wave overland travel. I don't. I like to add flowery language to it. People who are big in the industry, Mercer, Colville, etc., all like to narrate their overland travel rules. But the issue with this again becomes that a number of other classes have physical rule sets based off of the abilities that they're giving to the player. They are things that are inarguable things. They're either combat focused or RP focused or skill focused, to where they will always gain an inherent benefit off of using said skill, using a certain type of spell, using a type of weapon while in combat. All these things exist within the other classes, yet the Ranger's the only one that has a thing that's based off of a mechanic that is an optional thing for your DM to use. None of the pre-written adventures that we've discussed so far have a mandatory overland travel. Even the what is it? The Giants one. Oh goodness, it's gonna kill me every single time. Storm King's Thunder. Jesus. Even Storm King's Thunder has a very funny thing written into it, whereas if your players get lost, a floating magical city shows up to then taxi them to the next plot point. I am not shitting you. It is written in there and it's freaking hilarious. So yeah, there's even pre-writtens that just say, fuck overland travel. Here's a flying city. So yeah. First rule of Underdark travel: find a flump, ask it where the nearest 7-Eleven is. Flumps are just great things. They're great things. You can still scavenge with a survival check, but it's not guaranteed that the background. Correct. You can always scavenge for food off of survival checks. Survival allows you a number of things. If we pull up survival itself, you will find it here. The DM might ask you to make a wisdom survival check to follow tracks, hunt wild game, guide your group through frozen wastelands, identify signals that owlbears live nearby, predict the weather, or avoid quicksand or other natural hazards. Yeah, gut feelings and what action to follow, things like that. But the main core part of survival, this entire skill, gets made irrelevant 9 times out of 10 because, again, you either have Natural Explorer, which gives you all the things you would get as a benefit for just having it because you're in your favorite terrain, or it runs you the risk of then kind of toe-stepping on Outlander. And Outlander's whole thing should be, hey, it's Outlander. Look at Outlander. Look at that thing. And it just automatically gives it to you without a check. So bad design is bad design, but hey, they had an addition to run out. All right, so very bad. As always, you can choose an additional favorite terrain at 6th and 10th level. The reason why this is bad is, once again, it is a meta-based decision. You must have forward knowledge or previous in-game knowledge of where you will be in the adventure setting. Having this talk and discussion with your DM is great. The rewards, rather the functionality of the ability itself is very underwhelming, depending on the type of DM you're running with. A number of DMs want you to get into the dungeon and go, 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 go. If you take this, the other big problem is that we have adventures that are specifically in dungeons. There are like Temple of the Mad Mage or Dungeon of the Mad Mage. You have a number of like the Tomb of Horrors and the like that are just dungeon crawls. There are any number of DM's Guild ones that are just mega dungeons. And you have no urban environment that you can take, and you have no dungeon environment you can take. So your DM can just give you a finger, because you can be like, well, are we in a mountain because we're in a dungeon? Your DM can go, no, the dungeon's in the bottom of the ocean. You should have had aquatic, which also isn't a choice. So yeah, fun stuff there. Again, these are the two biggest sticking points. Favorite enemy and Natural Explorer are what I deem to be the reason why a number of people wrote off Ranger, because 2 of their early abilities did nothing. The fact of the matter is they also have 3 very unimpressive initial subclasses, which we'll get into in a second. But with each one of these, that is kind of where the hate, or rather the meh, of all of the feelings about Ranger seems to stem from. So yeah, we'll continue on. Fighting style, as we said, they get limited fighting style options as a Ranger. Super cool. Allows you to get a little bit of a little taste for fighter without all of the fighter goodies. You can take archery, defense, dueling, 2-weapon fighting, right? Cool. If you Driss Duerden, you can be a duelist. You're going to stack AC because you're afraid of damage and interaction. Because you play blue and magic, that's why you would take defense. That's my gripe of being a DM. Or you take archery. Most of the time you're probably going to take archery as a Ranger. It just tends to be the thing that people think Rangers are all about. I'm here to tell you that it is perfectly viable to take any of these. Dueling, defense, etc. Pretty good. The cantrip fighting style from Tasha's is worthwhile usually. So we'll get into that in a second here, because I think it is coming up. We'll talk about, let's see here, spells, archetypes, primeval awareness. Let's talk about cantrip. We'll break this down in a second, because we have the additional fighting style options down here as well. So we'll get into Druidic Warrior, which is the one you're talking about. We will go into it, I assure you, sir. Please wait while the bus arrives at your location. So yes, we have spellcasting. We know that anyone here probably knows you can take first level spells. You can take, wisdom-based spells. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability modifier. I'm not here to break down how spellcasting works in 5th edition. I'm here to break down a class. So moving right along, if you have questions about it, we'll go back for it. Ranger archetype, you choose your archetype at 3rd. You get an ability at 7th, 11th, 15th. Primeval Awareness. This is actually a very good one, I think. Beginning at 3rd level, you can use your action and expend 1 Ranger spell slot to focus your awareness on a region around you. For 1 minute per level spell slot expended, you can sense whether the following types of creatures are present within 1 mile of you, or within up to 6 miles if you're in your favorite terrain. This is bad, but it is a very good ability. The conditional of it being 6 miles, never going to be relevant. You do not need to know that there's a beholder that exists in a layer 6 miles below the crust of the earth that you happen to be walking upon. Your DMs can fuck with you. Don't let them do it. But you can learn aberrations, celestials, dragons, elementals, fae, fiends, and undead. Feature does not reveal the creature's location or number. So this is the good part up here, is letting players know that this stuff exists. The bad part is not actually revealing a location or how many there are, right? So if you're going to spend a first level spell slot on this, you're effectively giving people locate creature without any of the goodie of locate creature. This, more often than not, again, provides you a very cool ability, a very cool thing that only Rangers can do early on in early levels, but unfortunately is subject to a DM's whim, right? So it's another thing that a lot of people went, on Ranger. We already have an ability tied to a potential mechanic that could be ignored by your DM, overland travel. The one thing that you are supposed to shine in as a Ranger can be completely ignored by a DM in your party and made to feel invalidated, which no one ever wants to feel that way at a table. Primeval Awareness is the same way. Your DM can be like, oh yeah, you sense an aberration. Oh yeah, you sense an undead. You don't know how many there are. You don't know what they are. You don't know what location they are. And your DM can be like, yeah, there was an undead vulture that was flying around. And congrats, you've given your party wrong information. Everyone goes, yeah, the ranger gets fucked with all the time. So effectively, it's a really cool ability if you have a cool DM, as with anything. But if you don't have a cool DM, unfortunately, there's not a lot to protect you as a player to actually use the feature in the way in which it was intended, which sucks. Good old ice water. Extra attack, super cool, great. So we get to the last two abilities we're probably going to review here. I'm not going to talk about Vanish, Feral Senses, or Foe Slayer. They're irrelevant abilities, unfortunately, that they should not inform your decision to play the class, and they should not inform your decision of how you should be playing your class. They are Capstone Abilities. We went over it already. I did a big rigmarole. Your adventure will not call for these abilities. People will argue, well, I love high level D&D, and I got to level 20. Whatever, cool. Glad you did that, Chief. 9 times out of 10, we're not worried about that. Land Stride, starting at 8th level. Moving through non-magical difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. You can also pass through non-magical plants without being slowed by them, and without taking damage from them if they have thorns, spines, or similar hazards. In addition, you have advantage in saving throws against plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement, such as those created by the Entangle spell. So, it's a good drink. It's a good drink for ice water. See, my headset died again. These headsets are very sensitive to how much... I wonder if we'll do it like this. We'll turn it up on my end by a lot. And then we'll cut it down for you guys so it's not as bad. Hopefully that's not going to drown me out too much. But that'll work. Okay, so with this, Land Stride is very good. Ignoring non-magical difficult terrain, super duper good. Something that immediately makes you able to get there. It does have the kind of issue of making it to where if you are a ranged focus character, you get an 8th level ability that's a blank slot. It is for this reason that Rangers, above any other class, should be the versatile class. We'll get down to a more comprehensive role in the party towards the end here. But I want to just break that down here. If you are opting to play a ranged ranger, you're using a bow, you're taking archery, you're going to focus on the bow, that is a perfectly viable way to play. I will not tell you you're wrong, no one can tell you you're wrong, and no one can tell you that your fun is wrong, okay? As long as you're having fun with it, and you have fun being 100 feet away from the party, and shooting your longbow, or 300 feet from the party because you took sharpshooter, and shooting your longbow, and you're being a cuck, and your miniature is 5 feet off the table, that is completely fine. Don't worry about it. You're allowed to do that. Just know, at 8th level, you're going to get an ability that doesn't do anything for you, and we're so sorry. But Land Stride is super great. It allows you, again, to close distance and move through a number of things that can otherwise prove to be hazardous for other people. You enter into a deep brush. There are thorns that your DM is allowing kind of damage and things of that sort. Any type of jungle campaign, immediately Land Stride becomes very relevant. But the primary thing is that you can gain the advantage on saving throws against any plants that are magically created or manipulated to impede movement. So any of your entangle spells, any of your natural traps or ambushes, you're gaining advantages against the natural landscape. Again, it is underpowered compared to other classes, but you got to work with what you get. If you are a melee-focused ranger, tremendous 8th level ability. For endgame content, you're pretty much leaning on your spells at that point. You're looking at the 3rd level ranger spells, which tend to punch a little bit above their weight class. Thank goodness for that. But otherwise, it's a nice little like capstone ability. The final one you get is Hide in Plain Sight, which is painfully one of the most misinterpreted abilities we will ever get, and is another reason why rangers don't get played. Starting at 10th level, you can spend 1 minute creating camouflage for yourself. Camouflage, not invisibility. I'm going to say this again. Camouflage, not invisibility. You have to have access to fresh mud, dirt, plants, soot, and any other natural occurring materials with which to create your camouflage. Once you're camouflaged in this way, you can try to hide by pressing yourself up against a solid surface, such as a tree or wall that is at least as tall as you are wide. You gain a +10 bonus on stealth checks as long as you remain there without moving or taking actions. Once you move or take actions or a reaction, you must camouflage yourself again to gain this benefit. Okay, so this hide in plain sight thing tends to be the thing that, like, the mid-level to end game, right, end of adventure, rangers look at as a I am invisible at all times type thing. They will often take the 1 minute of casting time by the wizard to set up themselves as a camouflage person, and they will cast Pass Without a Trace, and they will gain a +20 bonus to stealth, and they will roll a 40 or 50 stealth, and then have a completely irrelevant 10th level ability the moment they take an attack action, because they're going to have to fight, because they're a ranger. They're one of the best in the melee. They're one of the best at the ranged. They don't get a bonus from being stealthy. Yay! Again, so because of this, many of the initial abilities and kind of feelings of the ranger have informed us the ranger is a bad class, right? Before we even get into subclasses, we're working off of a favorite enemy that is locked in based off of meta knowledge. We're walking into Natural Explorer, which doesn't give us any benefits that aren't already covered by a background feature that we would normally already take, and the game actually suggests that we take. We are gaining Spellcasting, which was bad to start, but now much better now that we have many more options. And then, of course, we are getting into Primeval Awareness, which unfortunately allows for the DM to play a little bit of naughty boy or naughty girl with us. Land Straud, which is a very limited ability, but allows a number of interesting things if you are a melee build. If you are unfortunately a ranged build, it is a blank ability slot. It's about your third blank ability spot in a row. And then, of course, Hide in Plain Sight, which gives you a bonus to stealth on a class that doesn't benefit from high stealth. Because it's cool, but it doesn't make you invisible, and it just lets them roll. And depending on your DM, again, rolling a natural 20 will defeat your +40 on your stealth check, because natural 20s beat everything to some people. It is what it is. So that's the end of our class features. Of them, we have Fighting Style and Spellcasting that remain relevant to this day. These are the two things that have broken the backs of many of the players and DMs that still value rangers at the table. These two things make the ranger. The ability to get a fighting style that is archery or melee focused, and the ability to get spellcasting off the druidic level that is also curated, a special list just for rangers. We'll get into why that's cool in a second. So yeah, now we get into the optional class features. This is how they sought to fix and repair the class that had already been broken. As we talked about, out of the about 5, was it 5 or 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 4, 5, Primeval Awareness. Out of the 5 abilities you get pre-level 10, and then, or up to level 10, I should say, all 5 of them are conditional and dependent on a number of factors that are either going to be there and cool, you get a minor benefit, or will not be appearing in this module, and you have a blank character that you have a fighting style and a spellcasting ability. Welcome to Rangers. So with this, the optional class features are all represented within Tasha's Guide, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, I believe. And they have, in my opinion, fixed many of the early game woes and mainstays of the Ranger class. As you said, most people are going to be playing the game from level 1 up until roughly level 10, right? 10 to 13, somewhere in there. That is just where it tends to be. Now we got to figure out why, how they want to fix it. Considering that the bulk of the ranger abilities that appear to level 10 are irrelevant abilities as they appear to the general masses, this is Wizards of the Coast trying to make them as viable as possible. Favored Foe is probably the biggest thing that they did, and I think they did it super good right. So let's go here. Deft Explorer replaces Natural Explorer. So as we recall, that we were paying attention, Natural Explorer is the one that gets replaced by your background feature. So what do they do? What do they change? First level Rangers feature, which replaces Natural Explorer. You are unsurpassed explorer and survivor, both in the wilderness and in dealing with others in your travels. You gain the canny benefit below. You gain an additional benefit when you reach 6th and 10th level in this class. So immediately you get canny, a new ability. Yeah. So you choose one of your skill proficiencies. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses the chosen skill. We'll talk about why this is crazy in a second. You can also speak, read, and write 2 additional languages of your choice. This is a powerhouse. They took a feature that was not being utilized or used for 9 out of 10 times from a ranger and made it a mainstay of a class that now has a lot of identity just in this immediate opening. You are getting to speak, read, and write 2 additional languages of your choice. Immediately great. No matter what situation you are in, more languages will always help your character for roleplay and allow and inform the ways in which you can interact with the DM's world. I will never never boohoo somebody for choosing to take linguist or any other thing that would allow you additional languages. Communication, even as we know it in the real world, is paramount. Being able to converse and deal with people, being able to have an ear in or words to a conversation happening is always welcomed. You should never allow a single player in your group to steamroll or run away with your game, and the easiest way to do that is making sure that you speak all the languages that they do. Don't double up on them, but making sure that you have languages is the way to do it. Making sure you have a way to interact with the group and world around you. Super good stuff. Nothing is worse than going to a dwarven mine and no one speaks dwarven, and you have no idea what all the warning signs say about low ceiling up ahead. The other big thing is choosing one of your skill proficiencies. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses the chosen skill. Absolutely tremendous. This allows you to immediately compete with the rogue in the party. So if a rogue is in the party normally, their expertise will inform them of the things they wish to do better than everyone else, right? The biggest thing about this is that canny is not expertise. Your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check that uses the chosen skill. It is not expertise. So you can later get expertise in a skill, either, I believe, through one of the subclasses allows it, if I'm not mistaken, or a number of other factors within the game that you can allow you to train to become an expert at the thing. So yeah, you bonking me? What are you bonking me for? So yes, the other big thing you can do, there is a build that I will tell you is a forbidden build. I forbid it in my games, but go use it in other people's games. There is, if your DM allows it, a halfling build that you can make that allows you a plus, I think it's a plus 15 at level 3. I want to say it's a plus 15 by taking Ranger plus one other class. But even just taking Halfling in general, you can be a Mark of Hospitality Halfling, and your bonus to Persuasion will be so high. So high. So high. Oh, yes, the low ceiling, of course. My apologies. It will be so high that your DM will hate you. But you can get all kinds of nutty stuff with it. Yeah, you can get expertise with feats as well. That's true. But yes, Canny for Rangers allows you to play a little bit of the skill monkey and be the best at a certain thing. This is something that they desperately needed. That way they could carve out their core identity within the party. You always want to have a session 0 if you can manage it. Even if your DM is not running a session 0, having open and clear communication with the rest of your party so you guys don't double up on too many skills and everyone is going to cut out a niche part of what they want to do to shine in the group or assist with the group as a whole. Super good. This allows you as a ranger now to be that person. Great. Moving on. Roving. You're walking at 6th level. You also get roving. Your walking speed increases by 5. You gain a climbing speed and a swimming speed equal to your walking speed. Congrats. You cannot be deterred or stopped. There's a wall. We'll climb it. There's an ocean. We'll swim it. I want to do it. I'm faster. So all super good stuff. Nothing to behoove. Nothing to hate on. Absolutely tremendous. At 6th level, right about the time when you're getting your second attack, right about the time when you're going to need an extra 5 foot of movement, right about the time your DM might have you swimming or climbing. Awesome. Super good. Tireless is about the top, and now we have a capstone for this. As an action, you can give yourself a number of temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier, minimum of 1 temporary hit point. You can use this action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, which at 10th level we know it to be 4. And you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This allows you immediately to get the false life spell, is about what it works out to be, on command 4 times per day, which is super duper good. Getting more hit points, even if you're not the tank, is always going to be worthwhile. Getting these temporary hit points, they have no timer attached to them. You just wake up in the morning, boom, give them all to yourself. You're starting the day with a d8 plus your wisdom modifier extra. Halfway through combat, if they go away and you find yourself with an extra action because you cast a bonus action, or you want to inform your beast pet companion to go do something, or your drake to go do something, boom, gain yourself the extra hit points, stay in the fight, stay awake. Because as we will talk later about, via your spells, you're also technically one of the best healers in the game. Isn't that weird? In addition, whenever you finish a long or short rest, your exhaustion level, if any, is decreased by 1, which now, again, is a mechanic that is not often used. I use it a shite ton, but not a lot of DMs like to use exhaustion because they feel it's unfair in the rules, because at 6 of them, you do kill a player. But this allows a ranger to now be very informed if you are in severe or terrible climates, or you guys are working very hard without tire or rest or any of that stuff. The ranger now becomes the best at it because they can get rid of one of them on a short rest. Super duper duper good. It also means the ranger is the best for any items that require the use of an exhaustion point. I don't know what kind of crazy person would ever do that, but hey, there you go. So immediately way better. I shouldn't have to explain why this is all better. We broke down why this is all better. Moving on, if you have questions. Yeet da deet da deet. Favorite foe replaces favorite enemy feature and works with the foe slayer feature. Awesome. So when you hit a creature with an attack roll, you can call on your mystical bond with nature to mark the target as your favorite enemy for 1 minute or until you lose concentration, as if you were concentrating on a spell. Big red arrow from World of Warcraft. The first time on each of your turns that you hit the favorite enemy and deal damage to it, including when you mark it, you can increase that damage by 1d4. Just flat out 1d4 extra weapon damage. Super good. You can use this feature to mark a favorite enemy a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. The feature's extra damage increases when you reach certain levels in this class, a d6 at 6, a d8 at 14th. So you're going to, at most, probably be rolling an extra d6. This effectively provides you a free cast of Hunter's Mark, in addition to being able to cast Hunter's Mark. More damage is always better, and the fact that it is a general use of it is great. It does cut down on concentration, which is the rough part of it. But that is the one thing I will say is that any spell that you are concentrating on, which I'm not sure, I don't think it might. It has been a while since I've cast Hunter's Mark because I didn't take it on my ranger ever again. We'll get into spells in a second, but I want to Hunter Mark. Oh, where are we at here? Spells. Did I spell it exactly right? Is that how bad it is? It is concentration, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, I stopped taking it, actually. Yeah, it is concentration. How about that? 1 hour. It's a Ranger's Hex. Yeah, I know what it is. But before, you kind of had to take Hunter's Mark as it was. Hunter's Mark was like the thing to take as a spell for a Ranger. Now that you have your favored foe, you effectively get it for free, so there's no reason to take it ever again. Hunter's Mark is still very, very versatile. However, there are now other spells that you can prioritize other than raw damage. I will say this. While yes, you win combats by dealing damage, you do not win the game by only dealing damage. Allowing this to open up your I want to deal more damage slot is great, but allowing now an open extra first level spell slot in a very limited range of spells that you're allowed to take is fantastic. The face value of this is I deal more damage, things are better for me. The back end benefit to this is I no longer have to take Hunter's Mark to be relevant in combat. If I want to fight a boss or something with high hit points, I can use favored foe and move on from that. Super good. We'll also talk about, as well, coming up, the class features, the Ranger archetypes, the ones that I feel are very good, the ones that I feel are very bad. But most of the good ones also give you bonus damage dice based off of bonus action or on hit, which further cement you as not needing Hunter's Mark anymore. So we'll get to that. So second level thing, just flat out, every single one of these is tremendous for every class. Tasha's has empowered players to hit well above their weight class for a number of these things. Additional Ranger spells is what follows that, of course. Spells on the following list of the Ranger spell list in the player's handbook. The list is organized by spell level, non-character level. Each spell is in the player's handbook unless it has an asterisk. Xanathar's Guide offers more spells. Yeah. So just for being a Ranger, you now get Entangle and Searing Smite. Both are super duper good. Don't have to break down why they're good. Entangle's a good spell. Searing Smite is bonus action, deal more damage. We just talked about that being a thing. It also does fire damage, which at early levels, getting around resistances is good. You just get these as additional spells that you can take. Aid, Enhance Ability, Gust of Wind, Magic Weapon. Magic Weapon is super relevant. Not enough players take it, in my personal opinion. Magic Weapon allows you to get across that resistance or whatever. I see a number of dungeon masters, especially those online. If you're playing in any online like Discord games or the like, or Facebook groups or whatever, a number of online DMs will try to balance encounters based off of CR5 enemies that have resistances to slashing, piercing, bludgeoning, and assume that that'll be fair and balanced. But then when they do that, a CR5 can also be a fire elemental, which takes half damage from all things because fuck you. And also now you're on fire and now you're getting hit for tons of damage and whatever. But hey, it's a CR5. It was totally balanced. According to the rules of the game, it was. Getting access to Magic Weapon and not needing a wizard to do it or a sorcerer, super great for this class. It's something I recommend most people take if you have the ability. If you have the intention to be a melee class, you need to have a conversation with any spellcaster in the group that if they can take magic weapon, they please do for you. As a ranger, it is very nice to not have to be the fighter or the rogue that has to rely on somebody else to cast magic weapon for them. Instead, you can take it yourself, and you can take care of yourself by doing so. I highly recommend it. It is something that is not taken enough. This and see invisibility are like the two things I yell at everyone to take because nobody ever wants to take them, and they are just so damn relevant 9 times out of 10. You also get Summon Beast. We'll talk about that. Summon Beast irreparably makes the class insane. We'll get over that in a second. You get Elemental Weapon, cool. Meld in the Stone, cool. Revivify, really needed it. And Summon Fey, cool spell. I'm not going over Dominate Beast, Summon Elemental, Greater Restoration, because again, top of our build is ending about 3rd level spellcasting. We don't get 4th level spells until 13th level. Just the way it is. Fighting style options. We get new fighting style options through Tasha's, which again is a redeemer for this class. We get blind fighting. You have blind sight with a range of 10 feet. While in that range, you can effectively see anything that isn't behind total cover, even if you're blinded or in darkness. Moreover, you can see an invisible creature within that range unless the creature successfully hides from you. So, 2 things here. Blind sight of 10 feet is not horribly relevant. The ability to see invisible creatures is not horribly relevant, unfortunately, because it's within 10 feet, and it's because if they haven't already taken the stealth action. The best thing about it is that if you're in melee with an invisible creature, you do not suffer the disadvantage roll of it. It is a really good niche fighting style. If you have access to taking additional fighting styles, it is not a bad thing to pick up later on. I would not build your base off of it. Oh, hey, thank you. What is this? Valley Xeon? Am I saying that right? Valley Xeon? Hello. Hi, welcome. I'm Kareem Zamir. This is Second Week Talks. Normally we do Dungeons & Dragons on Monday nights. Instead, we're just talking about D&D. I'm currently breaking down the Ranger class. It was something I've been wanting to talk about because people think it's a bad class, and I want to say it's a good class that does good things. It's got good people. There are good people here. But yeah, welcome to the chat. We are discussing Rangers. We're talking about the changes right now that they added to Tasha's Cauldron Everything. Blah, 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 blah. Making sure that. Hope you're having a great night for Mondays. Normally, again, I normally run, Second Week, boom, big old D&D campaign that we've been running now for about a year. But feel free. It is always a good time to jump in because there's nothing too complicated. I don't think there's, I pride myself on the idea that there's not too much in the campaign that you realistically need to have like forward knowledge of. I think, oh, knock on wood, I think I've done a pretty good job for making sure that the players inform the story as much as that, not the 14-page backstory that you will need to write, which is always a thing. So, blind fighting, as I've said, also good to meet you. Hi, welcome. The big thing with this channel is that all of our community goals inform decisions in the game. Anyway, let's talk about Rangers. Blind fighting, I think it's a great thing. I think it's great that they added it to it. I think it's good as an option. The biggest thing that you'll run into with a lot of it is that it's not a horribly relevant thing early on, and it won't inform your build. So yeah. Druidic Warrior. You learn 2 cantrips of your choice from the Druid spell list. They count as ranger spells for you, and Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for them. Whenever you gain a level in this class, you can place one of these cantrips with another cantrip of the Druid spell list. So there are 2 things that are good, 2 things are bad. Getting cantrips is always a benefit. A number of the Druidic Warrior ones are fantastic. The +2 from archery and the 2 up in fighting is always going to be relevant as you make your class and build it, depending on what you want to be a combat kid. The Druid spell list and their cantrips have the second worst cantrip list in the game. I think like best obviously is Wizard, second is probably Sorcerer, third is probably Warlock, and then Cleric, probably somewhere in there. And then I think Druid is kind of towards the bottom. Bard is very much the worst. Don't ever take Bard cantrips. They're the worst ones. It's just a big issue. So Druidic Warrior is something you can do if you want to be a more casty character and you want to open up many more options. The point of this is not to deal damage. You can deal damage as a ranger by being a ranger. By virtue of being a ranger, look, it exists right here. I'm not going to lie to you. Favored foe, it exists right there. That's your damage one. Don't worry about that. Don't take cantrips that deal damage. For the love of freaking God, people, stop taking cantrips that deal damage. You only need one. You can very much take Two of them that are very, very good. If you've watched Second Wake at all, you know Bucky, who was our warlock for quite a time, took, I think, Mold Earth, and I want to say he had Shape Water, because he could turn things into ice. Both those cantrips, tremendous for disabling people at your mercy. You can soften the earth, shove them in the ground, re-strengthen the earth, be an earthbender from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Cool stuff you can do, lots of mobility options you can do, and you can effectively do all kinds of crazy stuff. Druidcraft is also very good. You can mold and change a number of things. You can break things down. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Druidcraft as well. Ranger is a good class. Your biggest issue is bards, as full casters get Swift Quiver 7 levels earlier than the class it's meant for. But you see, I will make this argument to you. It's actually what we talked about earlier. Swift Quiver is a spell meant for bards. It's not a spell ever meant for rangers. People need to get that out of their head as much as possible. Rangers are not a class that should ever worry about 4th and 5th level spell casting. It is an irrelevant thing. It is a lie that has been given to you by the big Wizards of the Coast media, because it says, hey, look, you get that shit at 13th level and you get one cast of it at 13th level, whereas all of your 5th level spells can be taken by bards at 10th. And we broke down earlier, all of our adventures, our pre-written modules, expect you, the player, to only be about level 10 or 9 when the adventure is over. Most games do fall apart well after level 10, and the people that are able to do it, God bless them. But most adventures will end or come to a conclusion, or just people stop playing or get too busy, by about the time that you hit past level 8 to 9. That's kind of where we're at, like, end game level stuff. We personally here on the channel for Second Wake, we've been streaming our game now for 52 weeks. And with that, I think the players are level 7 now. So it's been a whole year of playing, and they are now level 7. So that'll inform you where my kind of old school mentality is for D&D. Yeah, fun stuff. Druidic cantrip, mold earth, and shape water. Correct. Take primal savagery, bite the enemy. You just don't need to. It's irrelevant. You don't need to do it. Yeah, Druidcraft, because dead friend tree. Oh, poor Lamont. So yeah, Druidic Warrior, super cool if you want more stuff to do. If you feel that the options provided to you from Ranger don't allow you to do a number of things. I will say this, I would never take Druidic Warrior if a Druid exists in my party. It just becomes then a toe-stepping game of like, oh, are you gonna take that one? Oh, you're gonna Vine Whip? Oh, I was gonna Vine Whip. Oh, you were gonna Mold Earth and do this cool thing? Well, I could do it. Oh, you're gonna, and it just, unlike wizards and sorcerers and clerics that can all kind of intermingly kind of move around because their lists are versatile enough, you unfortunately don't have the access to changing out a number of spells, like on a short rest or a long rest, that make you combat relevant or changing it. You can only change it when you gain a level in the class, so you're more limited in scope for what you can take, which means you kind of have to hammer down and really focus on the good cantrips on the druid list. Shillelagh can be decent if you want to focus on more spellcasting over Dex, but the problem is that, again, Dex is the best stat in 5th edition, unfortunately. It informs your AC, because you can only take medium armor. It informs your to hit and your damage for ranged or melee, because you can take finesse weapons. It informs your initiative roll at the beginning of every combat. It also is a saving throw, a primary stat. And it allows about like 5 different skills to all trigger off of dexterity. No, I don't think so anymore. Now it's just acrobatics and I think that might be it. Oh, sleight of hand, stealth. No, it might be 5. Oh my god. No, 3, 4. I don't know. One of those. But anyway, moving right along. Spellcasting focus. You can use a Druidic spellcasting focus with your ranger spells. A Druidic focus might be a sprig of mistletoe, a holy or holly, a wand or rod made of yew or another special wood, staff drawn from a whole living tree, or an object incorporating feathers, fur, bones, and teeth from scarred animals. The coolest thing about this to me is that it is a free feature. You can now use spellcasting focusi, which is super cool. Again, loses a little bit of oomph if there is a druid in your party, but the coolest thing about it is that now, by virtue of being a ranger, you are now leaning, and all of that hubbubaloo at the very beginning when we were breaking down what Wizard's idea of what a ranger should be is now more relevant to you, because now you have the ability to utilize druidic focuses, which, if you are playing with a fun DM or a DM that has any amount of vision at all. Not to say that the other ones are bad. If you're going to run it rules as written, that's fine. But the ability that a ranger could, in theory, utilize druidic only items, super cool. No longer is it a feels bad moment when you defeat a druid or an evil druid and he's got a staff that is for druids only. That sucks. This would make the argument to me as a DM and to many other people that, hey, cool, a ranger in the party could use druidic spellcasting focuses. Something that says druid only, there's a chance that the ranger could use it. If your DM wants to make you jump through a hoop for it, super cool. But the fact that they just printed this at all, really, really awesome. Allows people to really play it up. More roleplay often than not, but also from a mechanic standpoint, it does open up a number of the druid-only items to rangers, which tends to be super cool. Yeah. Primal Awareness. You can focus your awareness through the interconnections of nature. You learn additional spells when you reach certain levels in this class. You don't already know them, as shown as the Primal Awareness spells table. These spells don't count against the number of ranger spells you know. So, getting rid of Primeval Awareness for Primal Awareness, super neat. We'll talk about that in a second. Water is good. So, you can give up the ability to basically know what is relatively in the area, which, again, if you're not going to take favored terrain, then you can only do it within a mile anyway, because you won't have the favored terrain feature to make it 6 miles. But you can generally know what's in the area without having to do too much work. You can instead replace that with extra spells. Again, the only things we're really worried about are the first 3. If you think you would rather know what's in an area, it is completely viable, relevant ability as compared to these 3 spells, which I do appreciate. But you can trade that out instead for Speak with Animals, Be Sense, and Speak with Plants. Not bad. You can cast each of them without expending a spell slot. Once you cast a spell this way, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, which is super cool, a lot of fun. It gives, again, more options, more versatility for your class, and what your role in the party is intended to be. Being the actual nature guy in a party without druids, super cool. Being the person who can speak to animals or sense animals, super duper duper willing. Or super great, I should say. Speaking with plants, always a fun interaction. Always take the spell. It's the funniest freaking thing. Having a DM have to come up with a voice for plants, love it. Level 4. Whenever you reach a level in class that gains an ability score improvement, you can replace a fighting style you know with a fighting style available to other rangers. This replacement shifts your focus and martial practice. Just really good to have. The versatility options are all great. There's nothing more to say about them. They just do what they do. Nature's Veil, the Capstone ability. If you notice, and I'm just going to throw this out here for my earlier, I'm going to slam dunk it a little bit. Before, when we said level 10 was about where you need to work out, all of the optional class features end at level 10. They did not give you options past level 10. Look at that. Isn't that neat? Weird. It's called design in mine. Nature's Veil. You draw on the powers of nature to hide yourself from view briefly. As a bonus action, you can magically become invisible along with any equipment you are wearing or carrying until the start of your next turn. You use this feature a number of times equal to proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Hey, look. Nature's Veil does the thing everyone thought Hide and Plain Sight did, but actually makes you invisible. There's no reason not to take this. The Ranger optionals are not as optional as you think, with the exception of Primal Awareness. Everything else should probably be taken over the normal ones. We're trading out 5 irrelevant abilities for 4 abilities that are always relevant and 1 that is an optional. No reason not to. Ranger Archetypes. So before we get into Ranger Archetypes, let's have a brief discussion about what your expectations should be for this class, okay? As we've broken down now, we have the abilities already taken care of. We are a spellcasting focused class. We are a class that has martial prowess, but we also have the ability to utilize our abilities and skills in ways in which other members of our parties cannot do, right? A number of people will say that I am a DPR for a ranger. You can be. You certainly can. People will say I am a tank as a ranger. You can be. You certainly can. People will say I am a spellcaster as a ranger. You can be. You probably shouldn't, but you can be the spellcaster in the group, especially with your druidic cantrips. If you want to be that guy, you certainly can. You can cast Shillelagh. You can do all kinds of things. What you're hearing is Ranger is Red Mage. More or less is what you have to look at. The biggest thing that we run into, and it's a great lesson to kind of review and think on as we kind of move through things, through the various classes as well, is to understand that at the end of the day, the goal of your place and your role in the party is not a hard and fast thing. So that's the first thing that I think a lot of new players as a dungeon master kind of get wrong about Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. In other gaming systems, so you'll look at anything like Werewolf or any of the Apocalypse systems, or well, Apocalypse you kind of have to be virtue of everything anyway, but you can kind of focus a little bit. Scion, you'll pick to be a scion of a god. Many other gaming systems, even Pathfinder to an extent, tries to allow you a number of options that you can explore, but then slowly focus you down to be kind of this one singular thing. It's part of the reason and why that wizards, bards, and rangers tend to, at currently, and clerics to an extent, tend to be at currently some of the better classes you can pick for Dungeons and Dragons, if you're straight looking for punching above your weight class. The reason why is because the options that are available to you as a player through each of these 4 classes are so expansive and so exploratory that it allows you to fill multiple roles. We've seen it before for anyone who's watched Second Wake, that there are some times that will always be needed moments that you will have to explore other options of your character. Yes, we know you built your character to stab guys with knives. We know it. But you know what, Chief? Right now, you don't have enough AC to be in the front of the party. We are in a 5 foot wide hole in the ground going through a dungeon. The guy with 22 AC needs to be in the front. We need you in the back, either stabbing things or looking for traps when we need you to come up for it. And that's just how it is. You're not always going to get to play the crazy psycho wizard that summons down huge, massive AoEs. And if you are, cool for you, but there is the expectation that your class needs to perform in other roles as well. I think above all, the 2 best classes that handle this are the Ranger, and technically the Druid can switch up really well too, but primarily Ranger I think is very, very good for it, and Bard tends to be on occasion. Ranger I think is kind of the trophy of these classes that allows you to gap fill. You are the oil in the engine that makes everything continue to move smoothly. The gears can grind, but you are what fills in any of the chips and nicks and holes. As a dex-focused class, you're going to have good initiative on average. You're going to have good options. Some of the best weapons in the game are dex-based weapons: rapiers, longbows, crossbows, hand crossbows because of the feet. A number of really good options are availing themselves to you for that. A lot of people will try to get tunnel vision as a ranger, but I have openly will say this. As a ranger, you have the option at any time, even though other classes can change up what they do as a short rest or a long rest, and you don't always have that option, you still at any given time can drop and change on a whim, okay? And it's something that I think a lot of ranger players and a lot of D&D players in general are very afraid of. We've seen it in Second Wake. We've seen it where a number of times enemies will go a long way around and attempt to flank the party. That's not me being a dick. It's not me being like, gotcha, because more times than not, I show it for 2 turns. Like, these guys are coming. Figure out your lives. Oh, here they are. But it allows people to then change up. We look at things like Orville, right? Orville, who is our goblin monk, often wants to be right in the middle of combat, whirlwind kicking and punching and things of that sort. But we've seen more and more now that Celeste and Kobold Jones have both taken the front lines as a fighter and a paladin. Orville has now kind of fallen into this kind of intermediary, almost ranger-esque playstyle that we would expect from that. He is now moving to hammer on extra damage as a monk whenever he sees an opening in a target or a lower hit point thing that has taken a lot of damage, so he can finish it off and remove those actions from the available pool, or the ability to pull back and kind of jive in the middle of the group so he can additionally heal or work on these things. He has options for ranged and melee, and he maintains a high mobility motion. As we've seen with Ranger, that is exactly what we're looking at here. Ranger as a class has the AC to go and tank. It has a D10 hit dice, the second biggest hit dice in the game. It can take a few hits, right? Do not think, and I want to implore everyone watching, if you take nothing else away from this review of this class, do not think that you are unable to frontline with a Ranger just because you have a longbow in your hand. Yes, your attacks may not hit, but that's not often the case, right? The point of it is not always to be dealing damage every turn. The point of it sometimes is to make sure that you are a target instead of the wizard, instead of the sorcerer, instead of the bard, instead of literally half of the other classes. You have the ability to melee, you have the ability to range effectively, and you have access to all of the same weapons that warrior or that fighters have and that paladins have. So you need to make sure you put yourself through your paces. While it's kind of played up in the opening, it is very much what the core identity of the class needs to be. You need to be flexible, and you need to be hard when you need to be, right? You need to be able to be a wall for some people. You need to be able to get out of the way for others, and you need to be able to kind of handle any situation. Part of the reason why I will put Druidic Warrior as a viable option for those cantrips is because it offers more things and more available tools to your party that otherwise they would not have without you being there. So often, I see a number of people focus and hyperfixate on combat for 5th edition. Combat is tremendous. It is one key feature of the game, but it is a role-playing game first. It is not a combat simulation. So, in roleplay, the more options you can explore, the more things that you have access to will solve problems more effectively and more often than that of a +2 sword able to just swing harder at people. If you ever get the option of a magical weapon or any fucking cool wondrous item, probably take the wondrous item because it's going to give you something fun to do. Just my 2 cents. You can always find magical weapons, or you can take the magic weapon spell because they give it to you now. It's not always make it or break it, and a lot of people freak out when they see, oh, it's a moon touch sword. It's the only way to deal damage past this. And it's like, or you can just take the spell. You know, it's whatever. So yeah, the item could be anything. It could even be a boat or a +2 sword. Who knows? It could be anything. So yeah, your role in the party, as I see it as a dungeon master, if you are a ranger, is to be a filler, is to be the oil that keeps everything running. You have the ability to heal people with spells. You have the ability to enhance ability with your magic or various other key features. You have a way to emphasize your ability with skills based off of your new replacements for your kind of versatile movements, because now you can double your proficiency bonus. And then on top of that, you have enhanced movement as compared to the rest of the party. You have access to be able to utilize any weapon that is found on the ground. So even though combat is not the focus, more often than not, we have a number of people that hyperfixate and hyperfocus a fighter to be a spearman. I'm only going to use spears. I'm going to take the fighting style for this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take protection, so I have to use a shield and all this. And it's completely fine and viable for them to focus in on. But as a ranger, you never really get that. At most, you get archery if you want to take it for +2 to hit. But even if you don't take that +2 to hit, you're still just as good as everyone else for more or less every other weapon you can take up. So no reason not to. If you see a 2-handed sword on the ground, no one else is going to use it. Why not? You see a big shield on the ground? Hey, that's a thing that's somewhere on there. Like, there are a number of things that you have option for and availability to as a ranger that you should not be desperately afraid of. Just because your proficiencies will inform a lot of your decision-making process as a ranger, it allows you to carve out your own path, but there's no time in a ranger's life cycle that you should ever lock yourself into any one mold. You have to be, like the class says, like nature. Flexible, bendable, able to roll with the punches. If you are looking to play a ranger, I highly recommend you look at what you can do to maintain versatility throughout the entire run of your character. There's nothing worse than a ranger that goes, I have a bow, I am the bow guy. And then they get in melee and they go, well, I can sharpshoot and I can, okay. I'm going to spend my turn disengaging and running. Okay. Or you drop your bow and pull your swords out. Either way, it's really not that big of a deal. Now, it's not to say there's anything wrong with doing that. It's just you have, above many other classes, the ability to be rapidly flexible on what you're doing in combat, rapidly flexible on what you're doing in roleplay, and available to a number of different options that you can employ and deploy against friend, foe, everything alike. So that's my 2 cents. That's kind of where I'm at for what rangers should be. We'll move on to breaking down the archetypes, see which ones are good, see which ones are bad, move on from there. Beastmaster, horrible doo-doo crap. Let's move on. Okay, no. So, the Beastmaster. Here's my thing. Beastmaster is cool. Beastmaster gets a beast. That's the whole thing. You get a pet. The pet obeys your commands as best it can on its turn initiative. Great. They recently gave you new options. Instead of taking a beast that is no larger than medium, has a challenge rating of 4 or lower, they instead gave you a scalable pet, which I think tremendously helps this class. The issue again is that on your initiative on your turn, you have to command the beast, and you can use your action to command it to take the attack, dash, disengage, or help action. If you don't, it takes the dodge action. I believe now they've updated it to be a bonus action, because that's the whole big thing with the Drake Warden, is that it's also a bonus action now. The problem with this class, in my opinion, I'm going to hyperfixate in my opinion, the companion, now that it scales, is a much better, more viable option. The training that exists for it, where you can then use your bonus action to take dash, disengage, and help, super cool. Its attacks counting as magical at 7th level, very, very cool. The biggest problem is they printed Summon Beast and Summon Fae. They already had the Conjure spells, which are already kind of pushing old Fido out behind the barn to go the way of old Yeller. But now you have this spell, which we'll talk about here, Summon Beast. So Summon Beast, the fact that this spell exists, unfortunately breaks much of this initial Player's Handbook subclass. It is for this reason that I will never recommend anyone play Beast Rain or Beastmaster, and that if you want a pet, you treat yourself literally like Driz Duerden from back in the day, where Guinevere is a little ornate statue that is then summoned out. If you want to play a class with a pet, probably Wizard or Warlock, Pact of the Chain, at least you get a cool imp that can talk to you. But the fact that Summon Beast exists means that you get to have your cake and eat it too. You get to pick a better subclass, in my opinion, and then you can as well take Summon Beast, cast it as an action at the start of turn. It does everything that the Beast would do, only way better. That's it. It can fly, it can swim, it can breathe underwater, it gets pack tactics. Whatever you need it to do, right? The biggest thing is that the bestial spirit that is provided from this spell tends 9 times out of 10 to hit bigger and better and do things much more effectively than the Beastmaster Ranger currently offers. The hope was that when they were fixing and addending the classes, that the Beastmaster Ranger would get more class options that would further improve at early levels the actual creatures. But because the way they have it set up, you only ever get your kind of things at 3rd and 7th for Rangers for class abilities. This unfortunately puts you in a predicament where you are hanging on to a 3rd level ability that becomes distantly irrelevant almost immediately. We see it in the first season. Hey, my shirt. The first season of Critical Role, we look at Trinket. Trinket is a tremendous character, has a lot of personality, but there is a lot of homebrewing behind the scenes that Matt Mercer has published rules and options for that has made Trinket a way more viable companion than is initially available to you throughout the game. If your DM is willing to let you have a cool pet that is specifically able to grow with you, or something that is different than the normal options, and you and your DM want to go with that, and the kind of payment that you're giving is picking a subpar subclass that you otherwise might not have fun with, but you do get to get your Displacer Beast Kitten if you're Matt Colville, or you get to get Trinket, which evolves and changes and gets rollout attacks or whatever, or you want to do other weird stuff. Like for me personally, I customed out Chunkini because Morgan wanted a cool, fun, fat cat that did other stuff than just give the help action every turn, because as a bonus action as her rogue, she can already do that. So didn't matter to her. But giving funner, more like knockdown abilities or the weight thing is just more fun to play with between DM and player than it would be in this sense of being stuck with, here's my wolf, or here's my whatever. Allows you instead to play with things. I will recommend homebrew in this instance, but as always, I will say the caveat is you must clear all homebrew with your DM. Your DM should always have final say on what it is. But I believe it is called Squibbles Codex. It is from the XP to level 3 buddy Arcana. I forget what his name is now. He used to be the writer for XP level 3 when XP level 3 was very, very good. And now he is, I think it's a Runesmith. I think his name is Runesmith. But Squibbles Codex puts out a number of creatures that are all, I believe, CR 1/4 or lower that you can have as pets. There are a couple in there that could be really good templates for finding really good beasts for the Beastmaster. But again, at that point now we're splitting hairs. There is a number of things you could do to improve many of these classes. Moving right along, it's just unfortunately a very subpar class that does not offer a lot of offer a lot of, what's the right thing? Versatility, what we were talking about before. You are locked into this thing. Not great. Drake Warden, we covered in earnest way before. I talked about it a bunch. I have inherent problems with this class. I have a number of things that frustrate me to no end about this class. I discussed them when we reviewed the book. I will not review them here again. Everyone who watched, you should know. If you don't know, hey man, join our Discord. At me, Kareem Zamir. I'm happy to break down why Drake Warden is... Drake Warden is thematically amazing. Rules as written, bullshit. There is no goddamn reason it shouldn't be able to freaking fly with you on its back at that level. If monks get it, you should have it. Moving on with my life. All right, great. Boop, 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 boop. Also, the Dragon Breath. Fucking, why is the Dragon Breath at 11th level? What the fuck? Okay, anyway, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. Moving on. Whew, whew, whew. Just put the D&D talk vids on YouTube. No, because I don't get the YouTube haters. I'm not as good as, like, the other guys. I'm a chubby nerd with a beard, man. Nah, I'm good. Moving right along with my life. I also don't script these. These are very unscripted and very, like, Twitchisms. We just talk about the things. Anyway, cool. Fey Wanderer, super cool, very thematic. You move intermediary between the Fey boundary, and then you move kind of in and out of that. You gain a boon of the Archfey, super flavorful, super cool. One of deep breaths. Super flavorful, super cool. Dreadful Strikes is the first in many of a long line of abilities that I think have now become a staple mainstay of many ranger designs that have now informed the class moving forward. At level 3, you get Dreadful Strikes. You can augment your weapon strikes with mind-scarring magic drawn from the Gloomy Halls of the Feywild. Super flavorful, neat. When you hit a creature with a weapon, you can deal 1d4 psychic damage to the target, which you can take this extra damage only once per turn. Doesn't matter in most cases at level 3. At level 11, it turns to a d6. Nobody cares. The coolest part is you get an extra d4 on all of your attacks. Well, not all of your attacks, but at 3rd level, you're only getting 1 attack a turn unless you're dual wielding. Having that first hit, boom, be 2 to 3 dice. In this class, it's probably going to be your d6 plus 2 d4, 1 for favored foe, 1 for dreadful strikes, and then your offhand weapon will inform your decision as such. Again, this ability does not lock you into a melee weapon, nor does it lock you into a ranged weapon. You are the most versatile class in the game when it comes to your role in the party dynamic for combat and for social situations. There is nothing that says you have to dump int. There is nothing that says you have to dump charisma. You could dump strength if you wanted to. You could take all of the strength and be a muscle ranger. It would be dope because you could still take plate mail and have a 16 AC with a shield, 18 AC, walk around and punch people in their dicks. You can do that. Like, no one's saying you can't. So yeah, big thing with that as well. I will say that when I played a rogue, I played a muscle rogue, so I'm always team swole. Got to get in there, get your strength requirements in, and be a pack rat and carry all your shit on your back. Anyway, Fey Wanderer magic, super fun stuff. Charm person, meh. 5th level getting Misty Step makes this class just insane. Rangers with Misty Step, super, super, super big dick energy. Very cool to see it on a class. It's part of the reason why you take this class is access to the spell. We really, really, really undervalue how good mobility is at early levels. But when you have it available to you as a ranger, yes, it is still taking up your 2nd level spell slots, of which they are very finite and limited. But having access to Misty Step, even on your wizard or any other class, it is one of the best spells in the game, bar none. And early level teleportation just immediately changes the availability of movement options, puzzle solving ability, and ways to get around terrain features that otherwise would not have been available to you. Tremendous to see this on the class. Dispel Magic, super good. Everyone should take it. If your wizard isn't taking Dispel Magic, your wizard doesn't want you to live. Just let you know that. You also gain Feywild Gifts. This is all expletive type stuff. It is all roleplay stuff. Seasonal flowers, whatever you'd like. Horns or antlers can sprout from your head. Super cool. Great. No worries there. Otherworldly Glamour. Your Fey qualities give you a supernatural charm. As a result, whenever you make a charisma check, you can gain a bonus equal to your wisdom modifier, minimum +1. Earlier in the broadcast, we talked about there is a super dirty, evil halfling build. This is it. You take Otherworldly Glamour at 3rd level. You take this subclass. You gain your Wisdom modifier. In addition to, you gain a bonus to the check equal to your Wisdom modifier, which means if you also have a +5 in Charisma, you can have a +10 on the check based off of Otherworldly Glamour. Add into the fact you double your proficiency bonus on Persuasion checks because you are a Ranger who can take that. So you're already at level 3, you're at +4 from class, you are at plus up to 8 to 10, depending on if you rolled stats or not. So you're already up to a +14 on your Persuasion check, on any Charisma check you make, really. But I believe the Halfling bonus only applies to Persuasion checks, and I believe the Halfling gives you a advantage on the roll. So, yeah, if you want to out-talk your Bard friend, Fey Wanderer. Halfling Mark of Hospitality. Get on it. +14 on your Charisma checks. You heard it here first. Anyway, moving right along. Beguiling Twist, which is the last thing we'll review because the next one is level 11. The magic of the Feywild guards your mind. You have advantage on saving throws against being charmed or frightened. Super relevant against dragons. In addition, whenever you or a creature you can see within 120 feet of you succeeds on a saving throw against being charmed or frightened, you can use your reaction to force a different creature you can see within 120 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC. If the save fails, the target is charmed or frightened by you, your choice, for 1 minute. The target can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a successful save. Super fun, super useful. Getting saving throws, that's absurd. It is absurd. From I remember those cartoons, they're really cute. And little animations. Absurd. So, the magic of the Feywild guards your mind, you have advantage. Getting advantage against Charm or Frightened is great. They're both save or suck conditions that unfortunately really plague a lot of what we have here in 5th edition. Just having this is great. Being able to succeed on a saving throw against it, and using your reaction to then impose that against a different enemy can often be very, very good. A lot of design, which we haven't ever talked about here on the channel, but a lot of Dungeon Master design does revolve around the action economy. You're never going to, an experienced DM should never, and probably will never, have just a boss fight with one creature, unless you're crazy and you want to have them fight clowns. That'd be fun, right? That went okay. But with that, you usually don't fight just one enemy. So if the big bad boss is frightening and charming people, the ability to put that on their goons or other relevant targets or try to flick it back at them, super useful, super fun. Not super relevant against undead, as many of them are immune to fear, but it is what it is. Super fun class. We're not going to talk about Fey reinforcements. We're not going to talk about Mystery Wanderer. Those are cool. Neat. Game ended at 10. Don't care. Level 11 is not that far off, but it just gives you like summon Fey, and it doesn't count against the number of spells you know. When you cast a spell, you can make it where like it doesn't have concentration, I think, right? Yeeth. There we go. Yeah, it doesn't require concentration, but if you do, the spell only lasts a minute. So yeah, cool, really cool thing for Fey reinforcements. Plays off of the new spell. Was very cool that they got released together. Fun stuff. Very cool class. Gloomstalker, the one that everyone wants to take. Not even joking. Gloomstalker is legitimately one of the best subclasses in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. It is just very, 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 very fucking good. Okay, that's it. Great. Good that we talked about that. For Gloomstalker magic, Disguise Self, it's okay. It's good roleplay opportunity. No one hates it. Rope Trick is insane. Getting Rope Trick on your spell list, super good. Getting it just as a bonus spell, great. Rope Trick can be your best friend or your worst enemy. I've had people at my table abuse Rope Trick as often as possible and then die. And I've had people that should have used Rope Trick to get out of a sticky situation and forgot they had on their spell list. It is a very versatile, very good spell that a number of many people will get wrong and try to use in interesting and creative ways and then screw themselves over. But it is a good spell. Dread Ambusher is the reason why many people take this. The reason why is because at the bonus, you can give yourself, first off, a bonus to your initiative equal to your wisdom modifier. So whatever your wisdom mod is, immediately onto your initiative. If you are going to try and be a caster, it almost behooves you to take Gloomstalker, because then you can focus on wisdom primarily and still maintain a good level of initiative in the order, which tends to be pretty good. Additionally, at the start of your first turn on each combat, your walking speed increases by +10, which allows you to get into position, allows you a lot more mobility options, allows you to get away or put distance between yourself if you get ambushed. If you take the attack action on your first turn, you can make one additional weapon attack as part of that action. If the attack hits, the target takes an additional 1d8 damage of the weapon's damage type. This is the reason why a lot of people take it. It is not a bonus action to do this attack action. So if you're dual wielding, you can attack, bonus action attack, and your third attack in that attack gets an extra 1d8 of the weapon's damage dice. People go nuts over this. Like, it is, again, the gotcha class of Rangers. It is very, 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 very good. Getting an extra attack only once per combat is great, but the bonus to initiative rolls cannot be understated. It allows you options. It allows you to spring into action quicker than most individuals. It's just a very, very good thing. Umbral Sight also gets insane almost immediately. If you decide not to be melee and you want to go ranged, becomes even more relevant. You gain dark vision out to a range of 60 feet. So if you are human, take this class. Because then you have dark vision, or if you're Dragonborn, you should take this class. Why Dragonborn still don't have dark vision? What the frick? If you already have dark vision from your race, you instead increase its range by 30 feet. Super useful. You're also adept at evading creatures that rely on darkness. While in darkness, you are invisible to any creature that relies on dark vision to see you in darkness. The amount of times, both as a player and as a DM, that you can ambush or surprise action attack something that is in darkness is insane. I cannot count the number of times that players will explore not having a light or any torches or anything, even though some of them might not have dark vision because they don't want to compromise their position. So they're relying on people guiding them through a hallway or anything using dark vision. And guess what? Now all the Rangers, all the Gloomstalkers are invisible to that party. Or vice versa. You're going and raiding a Duragarian castle, or you're underground and you're hunting dwarves for some reason, or any type of underground enemy. If the dragon's area is not well lit, congrats, you're now invisible to the dragon for free. For free! Which means they have disadvantage to hit you at all times. It effectively gives you a +5 AC base. It's insane. It's literally insane. Bonkers mononkers. Iron Mine, less useful, but it's kind of the last capstone ability you're really going to get. You've honed your ability to resist mind-altering powers of your prey. You gain a proficiency bonus in wisdom saving throws. If you already have this proficiency bonus, instead you gain proficiency in intelligence or charisma saving throws, your choice. It just, again, makes your saving throws more relevant, allows you to continue to use your wisdom to inform your decision and take on a little bit more of the scary bullcrap that you're going to run into in the game. The fact that it's also flexible in case you take the feat that gives you better saving throws, or you are multi-classed, super useful. Stalker's Flurry, technically we won't ever want to look at this, but it is level 11. We'll talk about it. Some adventures do go to 13 to 15. At 11th level, you learn to attack with such unexpected speed that you can turn a miss into another strike. Once on each of your turns, when you miss with a weapon attack, you can make another weapon attack as part of the same action. So, yes, it just allows you effectively a reroll. The thing of it is that a lot of people try to get around is Elven Accuracy, because Elven Accuracy also triggers off of a miss. You can then re-roll, or you can add a dice to it. A lot of people will use that as well. This is a big point of contention between when an attack is considered missed to trigger abilities. The whole thing. The point is, the fun part of it is you miss one attack, you get another attack to try to replace it. Super useful, super fun. So yeah, that's Gloomstalker. Again, probably the S tier subclass of Ranger. Super duper good. Now we get on to my personal favorite one, that I love this next one the best. So Horizon Walker. Horizon Walkers guard the world against threats that originate from other planes, or seek to ravage the mortal realm with otherworldly magic. They seek out planar portals and keep watch over them, venturing into the inner planes and the other outer planes as needed to pursue their foes. These rangers are also friendly to any force in the multiverse, especially benevolent dragons, fae, and elementals that work to preserve life in the order of the planes. Super duper good flavor. For people who don't know, my little goblin is a ranger, and when I made her, she was a Horizon Walker, because I think Horizon Walkers are super duper dope. Let's talk about why. Horizon Walker magic, cool. You get, hey look, it's that spell I love real good. You get protection from good and evil, which is very good. We see that with Velithil constantly. It is a very relevant spell and very, very good. You also get Misty Step, because Misty Step is bonkers mononkers good. 9th level, you also get Haste, which is super fun. You get Banishment Teleportation Circle later on, but again, irrelevant levels. Most campaigns don't survive that long, just the nature of the beast. But hey, look, Misty Step. It's right there. Look how good it is. 3rd level, you get Detect Portal. This is probably the most useless ability that you'll ever get on a ranger. Still doesn't matter. As an action, you can detect the distance and direction of the closest planar portal to you within 1 mile of you. Once we use this feature, we can't use it again for a short or long rest. See, Planar Travel. This is an ability highly dependent and based off of theme and roleplay. I love it because when we were playing it, we were playing a kind of like plane chase, kind of planescape campaign. Where I was playing Asamina. Super duper fun to be able to be trapped in another dimension and be able to sense when the portal was nearby that we would be able to get out of things and return to Sigil. So super fun stuff. Planar Warrior, at 3rd level, you learn to draw on the energy of the multiverse to augment your attacks. As a bonus action, you choose a creature you can see within 30 feet of you. The next time you hit that creature, this turn with a weapon attack, all damage dealt becomes force damage, and the creature takes an extra 1d8 force damage from the attack. When you reach 11th, it goes 2d8. Super powerful ability, allows you to ignore a lot of the oomph about lower level non-magical weapons. You can instead turn 1 attack a turn. On average, you're going to have 1 attack a turn into force damage immediately, and you get a bonus to doing so. Yes, it eats your bonus action, but at lower levels, the more relevant text becomes force damage. Super cool. Again, people will bitch and moan, oh, bonus action, I can't dual wield. Cool. You know what? A rapier and a shield usually means you have 18 to 19 AC. Welcome to tanking, kids. Or you can have a bow, whatever. Still fun. People bitch and moan that it requires a bonus action. They can ligma. Ethereal Step, super duper useful. Bonus action, you cast Etherealness spell without spending a spell slot. The spell ends at the end of the current turn. Once you use the feature, can't use it again on a short or long rest. Etherealness, for those who don't know, is a 7th level spell. So at 7th level, you can cast a 7th level spell. Yes, it only lasts for until the end of the current turn, but a one of self-action etherealness is super good. For anyone who doesn't know what etherealness is, let's cover that so we can actually inform ourselves of how freaking ridiculous this thing is. So etherealness is a 7th level spell that normally lasts 8 hours. It requires an action as is of the school transmutation and is range of self. You step on the border regions of the ethereal plane in an area where it overlaps through the current plane. You remain in the border ethereal for the duration until you use your action to dismiss the spell. During the time, you can move in any direction. If you move up, down, every foot of movement costs an extra foot. You can see and hear the plane you originated from, but everything looks gray. You can't see anything more than 60 feet away. While on the ethereal plane, you can only affect and be affected by other creatures on that plane. Creatures that aren't on the ethereal plane can't perceive you and can't interact with you unless a special ability or magic has given them the ability to do so. You ignore all objects and effects that aren't on the ethereal plane, allowing you to move through objects you perceive on the plane you originated from. When the spell ends, you immediately return to the plane you originated from in the spot you currently occupy. If you occupy the same spot as a solid object or a creature when this happens, you're immediately shunted into the nearest unoccupied space and take force damage equal to twice the number of feet you removed. The spell has no effect on you if you cast it while you're on the ethereal plane or on a plane that doesn't border it, such as the outer planes. So, yes, this does mean that at 7th level, with a Horizon Walker, you can, as an action, cast on yourself Etherealness, and then walk through a solid thing of stone into a place you shouldn't be. You need to, I don't know, rob a bank? You got it. You need to sneak into a place? You did it. You get caught? Cool. Turn ethereal, run through a wall, now you're out in the middle of a busy street. You've immediately evaded capture. Etherealness is an insane spell, and even cooler is that it's given to us at 7th level as a ranger. It is, bar none, one of the most powerful things you can get as both an in-combat oh shit button, or I need to get to somebody, because now you can ignore all free strikes because nothing else is in the ethereal plane. So you'll take the ethereal spell, make a beeline for the villain, prepare whatever you want to do for your next turn. Etherealness drops at the end of your turn, and then next turn, congrats, you've made base-to-base contact with the enemy, or you've been able to chase someone down who is using hallways and bullshit. Doesn't matter. You have one turn to do so. You're usually going to have about 30-foot movement. You typically can dash, so would be pretty nice. Your final ability is Distant Strike, which is also absolutely fucking insane, and why I love Horizon Walker, because Horizon Walker is full Nightcrawler. If you are a fan of Nightcrawler from X-Men, super cool. If you're not, what the fuck's wrong with you? Nightcrawler is awesome. Distant Strike, an 11th level ability. You gain the ability to pass between the planes in a blink of an eye. Whenever you take the attack action, you can teleport 10 feet before each attack to an unoccupied space you can see. If you attack at least 2 different creatures in an action, you make an additional attack against the third creature. So again, this opens up if you want to be a melee, kind of like poofy and stabby type. You can use a rapier, you can use a shield, have high AC, attack, teleport, attack, teleport, attack, teleport. With spells that you can later take as well, that require concentration, you can then also inform your decisions further by taking things like magic weapon, certain smites, things of that nature, that allow you to then kind of blend and stay mobile. This also allows you, yes, to ping pong off of enemies to, again, get there. As a person who used to play War Machine Hordes for a long time, I'll tell you, a lot of it is just making sure you get to where you need to go, and having any type of mobility like this just continues to do so. This also means that you can take the attack action while in a grapple and teleport 10 feet, thus ending the grapple. It is fucking insane. Why Asamina is a Horizon Walker. It's pretty cool. Actually, Distant Strike at my 11th level, not the reason why. Misty Step at 5th. Moving right along. Hunter, one of our kind of older classes, still really good. Hunter is Hunter's Prey. So emulating the Hunter archetype means accepting your place in the bulwark between citizen and the terrors of the wilderness. As you walk the Hunter's path, you learn specialized techniques for fighting and the threats you face, from rampaging ogres to hordes of orcs and towering giants and terrifying dragons. Dope, dope, dope. Third level, you pick whatever you'd like. You can pick Colossus Slayer, which adds a d8 to all of your damage rolls for anything that's below its maximum hit point. Giant Killer, when a large or larger creature within 5 feet of you hits or misses with an attack, you can use your reaction to attack that creature immediately. So if you're fighting giants, really good thing. Or if you want to be cheeky and be a goblin, a kobold, or a halfling, just get nuts, man. Halflings especially already kind of move through people's legs and kind of take the dash and disengage, but then you can literally kill size large things and just be fucking annoying and fun. Like, you can be a size small creature that's killing giants. Really cool thematically. It's a trope, but it's a really cool trope. David and Goliath, I blame the Bible. Horde Breaker, once on each of your turns, you make a weapon attack. You can make another attack with the same weapon against a different target creature that's within 5 feet of the original target and within range of your weapon. This does mean that you can take a lance or a polearm of any kind and use that. Means you can use a bow, bang bang, if 2 enemies are next to each other. Also means that, yes, if you're in melee and you're holding the front line, bang bang bang. It just is a always relevant ability. All 3 of these are very good. I think Giant Killer is probably the weakest one, just because it requires a larger creature within 5 feet of you to do so. But if you are playing with a cool DM and you're playing a size small character, ask him if Giant Killer would be cool for size mediums. Is it really that game breaking? No. All right, fresh water, let's go. So level 7, you get defensive tactics. You get escape the horde. Opportunity attacks you are made with disadvantage. Super cool, but everyone likes to take the mobile feat with some rangers, so less useful than most. Multi-attack defense. When a creature hits you with an attack, you gain a +4 bonus to AC against all subsequent attacks made by that creature for the rest of the turn. This is a boss killing ability. And people are like, but Kareem, it doesn't deal damage. Why is it a boss killing ability? As we said before, dex aside, assuming you're not wearing half plate or any other medium armor, right? You can instead wear medium armor that is a flat bonus, get up to 17 to 18 AC, and then just tank on a motherfucker. With this, if they hit you on their first hit, which a lot of boss enemies will have multiple things. They'll have like multi-attack with like 2 hits of a sword and a dagger, right? So 2 dagger strikes in an offhand, or they'll have 3 attacks, or they'll just have 4 attacks or something nuts. Especially at higher levels, a lot of the enemies will have multiple attacks. A lot of DMs as well will also have a number of creatures that are all in creature groups that are all sharing that. A goblin, I'm pretty sure a goblin boss, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. Let's look up here. Goblin boss. Boop. Goblin boss. Monsters. Look at that. We got it. So goblin boss, right? This is a really early level creature. CR level 1. It makes 2 attacks with its scimitar. The second attack has disadvantage. Cool. Only has a +4 to hit. Just by virtue of having this immediately, you're looking at how they inform design. Just because it is a boss, they've already given it an additional attack, right? So because of this, further and furthermore, whenever you get to higher levels, many of the creatures will follow this philosophy that instead of having the second attack with disadvantage, they will just flat out have a second attack or a third attack or 2 in an offhand or whatever. It is a very common thing to have. You'll also run into hydras and all kinds of other nonsense that just tends to be ridiculous. Because for that reason, it then, of course, makes it to where multi-attack defense tends to be a really good saving grace and lifeline for you to go toe-to-toe as a ranger and engage the boss, or engage the big bad thing, or engage their minions that happen to have multi-attack, as goblin bosses can have multi-attack. Just by virtue of this in general, it gives you a free cast of shield after an attack is hit. A lot of people will give gripe and blech about the fact that, oh, well, the first attack I'd hit, great, cool. If I get hit by a knight for 20 damage, I don't want to get hit for 40 damage on the second attack. Another +4 is just really relevant, and a lot of creatures, because of how the scaling works on it, tends to be very good. If you have a cleric in your party, you can make your DM's life a living hell, because you'll walk around with 20 AC, and then you'll probably walk around with 24 AC after the first hit, which means that you're getting hit probably once a turn. Getting hit once a turn instead of 3 times a turn, super relevant, super great ability. Steel Mind, you have advantage against saving throws, against being frightened, super relevant ability, but for defensive tactics here, primarily multi-attack defense tends to be the clear winner for this class. I will always say advantage against being frightened is super good if it is relevant in your campaign. Try to pay attention. You have until 7th level to make this decision. Should you pick Hunter as your thing? You have 6 levels to decide. Well, you have 4 levels to decide, because you get this at 3rd level when you pick your subclass. Multi-attack defense just tends to be the better one. What we talk about for the reasons mentioned, although saving throws against being frightened, super duper relevant. Part of the reason why halflings are very, very, very good, other than the natural one ignoring thing. Just advantages against frightened is super good. Being able to fight dragons, relevant. Multi-attack, at 11th level, you gain one of the following features. You gain volley. You can use your action to make range attacks against any number of creatures within 10 feet of a point you can see within your weapon's range. If you have ammunition for each shot, super good. Whirlwind attack, you spin in a circle, everything within 5 feet of you, you make an attack roll against everybody. Super useful. We do not read the rest of these because they are irrelevant. Hey, we're making good time. We're just about up. We're good here. So I'll get through the last 2, and then we'll talk about spells, and then that'll conclude our talk about the Ranger, if everyone's cool with that. So, Monster Slayer. You've dedicated yourself to hunting down the creatures of the night and wielders of grim magic. A Monster Slayer seeks out vampires, dragons, evil fae, fiends, and other magical threats. Trained in the supernatural techniques to overcome such monsters, Slayers are experts on unearthing, defeating mighty mystical foes. Before we read into this, let's be real. If you're fighting against vampires, dragons, evil fae, fiends, and magical threats, and you're doing that at 3rd level, your DM is either playing Curse of Straud or really has it out for you, friends. Like, I'm a 3rd level character, let's fight a dragon. No. But anyway, you do get a number of cool abilities. Let's talk about them. Monster Slayer magic, you get protection from good and evil. Very relevant ability. Zone of Truth, very good roleplay ability that is normally exclusively for clerics to take. If you ever want to see how useful Zone of Truth is, there is a fantastic podcast. I don't recommend their new content, but they are called The Adventure Zone. The Adventure Zone is tremendous. Their early stuff, absolutely tremendous. Before they started, I don't even know what happened to them. There's a whole thing. There's YouTube videos about people covering it. They offended a lot of people, from what I understand. I just didn't like it because their content moved away from being more fluid and fun to a more structured scenario, and wasn't my thing. But in the early parts of it, their dad uses Zone of Truth every time. Hilarious every time. I love Zone of Truth. I think it's a fun spell. It allows you as a player to have a bullshit button. A lot of people use Insight as a lie detector test. It's not what Insight really is for. But Zone of Truth is in fact a lie detector test. So fun thing. Then you get Magic Circle. Magic Circle, people do not use this spell enough. Unfortunately, it takes a minute to cast. That would be why. But if you ever know that you're going up against a boss that's going to show up at a location that you're at, Magic Circle is so cool. All right, moving on. So, relevant ability here, protection from good and evil, is the winner for why you're picking this class for Slayer spells. Banishment and Hold Monster come in at 13th and 17th level. No one cares. We're already dead. We retired already. We're sipping whiskey. Hunter's Sense. At 3rd level, you gain the ability to peer at a creature and magically discern how best to hurt it. As an action, choose a creature you can see within 60 feet of you. You immediately learn whether the creature has any damage immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities, and what they are. If the creature is hidden from divination magic, you sense that it has no damage immunities, resistances, or vulnerabilities. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier. minimum of once. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. This is fucking nuts. It's so good. Like, if you are me as a person and you want to know how the sausage is made, this ability is so good. Being able to know and inform the rest of your party to any potential immunities or any type of resistances that could come can highly change the way in which you interact with things. Additionally, you can choose any creature you can see, which means even in a calm, casual, non-combat encounter, you can effectively size up NPCs. There are a number of DMs that will often put very scary, very powerful creatures in front of you, or NPCs that they do not, unfortunately, have the wherewithal or ability for roleplay to inform you that these are things not to be fucked with or things not to swing on. Having Hunter Sense is a big old cover your ass button. You can look at it and be like, yeah, that fighter is immune to this and immune to that and resistant to this and blah, blah, blah. And you go, boy's in a shirt and has like a crooked knife on his belt. Yeah, he's immune to all these things. You just go, that's what's up. You just walk away. Thank you, sir and ma'am, and I wish you a happy day and take care. Additionally, it just helps inform the rest of your party that are beholden rather, to a number of elemental options, such as wizards, sorcerers, warlocks to an extent, and clerics, as to what need to be done. Additionally, if you do see that there are creatures that are resistant to non-magical piercing, slashing, bludgeoning, you can inform your fighter or wizard to get on that magic weapon spell, or you as a ranger with access to magic weapon can inform that for the rest of your party as well. Makes Monster Slayer very, very relevant, very, very good. Slayer's Prey is also something that is then just straight up combat. Starting at 3rd level, you focus your ire on one foe, increasing the harm you inflict on it. As a bonus action, you designate one target you can see within 60 feet of the target of this feature. First time each turn that you hit that target with a weapon attack, it takes an additional 1d6 from the weapon. Benefit lasts until you do a short or long rest. Ends early if you designate a different creature. The key text of this is that it does not count as concentration, so it does stack with your other ability. Previously, before you had the extra ability for a d4, you would cast this, then you would cast Hunter's Mark, and then you would rock and roll. With a short sword, you were rolling 3d6, feeling pretty, against any singular target. You are single target removal first and foremost, 9 times out of 10, but you can always interpose yourself in there and make yourself a nuisance. Be free to do so as a ranger. Supernatural Defense. At 7th level, you gain extra resilience against your prey's assaults on your mind and body. Whenever you target, the target of your Slayer's Prey forces you to make a saving throw, and whenever you make an ability check to escape that target's grapple, add a d6 to your roll. Just fun, relevant ability. Little dinky that it's only for your Slayer's Prey. However, you can, of course, utilize it on a once per. The one thing that is backbreaking to this class and subclass as a whole is that you really need to pick who your prey is, because you only get a reset of it on your short rest, I believe. You get it one time for short rest. So you and the warlock are like this because you get your Slayer's Prey back and they get their spells back. And since 2 of your abilities rely on it, that's the rough part. 11th level, Magic User's Nemesis. Whenever you see a creature casting a spell at teleporting, you can use your reaction to magically foil it. Creature must succeed on a wisdom saving throw against your spell save DC, or it fails and is wasted. It is a very, 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 very niche thing. It is super cool when it happens, but again, super niche. So cool class. The main thing is that Hunter Sense. This Hunter Sense ability is just absolutely tremendous and tends to be very, very relevant. Fighters get this. I believe Battle Masters get it at 7th or 8th. They get the ability to like size up an opponent. But yeah, you get it at 3rd, which just makes it very, very combat relevant and very roleplay relevant. Our final one is the Swarm Keeper, the creepy kid from Naruto that everyone wanted to be because he had the coolest jacket. So, feeling deep connection with the environment around them, some rangers reach out through their magical connection to the world and bond with Swarm and nature spirits. The Swarm becomes a potent force in battle as well as helpful company of the ranger. Some Swarm Keepers are outcasts or hermits, keeping to themselves and their attendant swarms rather than dealing with the discomfort of others. Other Swarm Keepers enjoy building vibrant communities that work for the mutual benefit of all those they consider part of the swarm. So, with that, you get a gathered swarm. At 3rd level, a swarm of intangible nature spirits has bonded itself to you and can assist you in battle. Until you die, the swarm remains in your space, crawling on you, flying or skidding around you within space. You determine its appearance, or you generate its appearance by rolling on the swarm table below. Again, super fun that they allow you the option to do whatever you'd like. This is a complete personal choice. I very much recommend it. The big thing about it is that on each of your turns, you can cause the swarm to assist you in one of the following ways immediately after you hit a creature with an attack. So when you attack, you can add 1d6 free piercing damage to the swarm. Again, stacks with your ability, allowing you as a ranger at level 3 to throw 3 dice of damage on anybody. Super useful. You effectively have the Barbarian from Hero Quest, which is arguably one of the best people you can play, except for the Dwarf, who's way, way, way better. So with that, the attack's target must succeed on a strength saving throw by your spell save DCs or be moved up to 15 feet horizontally in a direction of your choice. This allows you to have combat relevance and movement. It also means that you have a get off me button for any of your non-melee participating party members. Use this more often than using the extra damage 9 times out of 10. Being able to move people out of the way and then engage with them just allows you to be a complete nuisance, control the battlefield, control what your party is doing, and allow you to kind of pick and choose how you're going to engage with it. More and more, again, as we see these subclasses, they are focused on a 1v1 mentality for the Ranger, which means siphoning off or picking off a single enemy and moving them out of the way that you then can then move to and get into melee with. Very, very good. In a 1v1 stance, you can lock down a target and still be completely relevant for the rest of your team. We'll talk about that in spells as we wrap up. Alternatively, when you hit, you're moved by the swarm 5 feet horizontally in direction of your choice. If you are a melee swarm keeper, a ranged swarm keeper, this allows you to be kept out of melee as often as possible. All 3 of these abilities are highly, highly, highly specialized and very, very, very relevant. Do not be tempted to only do the 1d6 damage. I will say this again. Do not be tempted to only take the 1d6 damage. Both of these are super great. The other thing you can do is after you hit a creature with an attack, which means if you have multiple attacks in a turn, you can trigger these multiple times. On each of your turns, you can cause the swarm to assist you in one of the following ways after you hit a creature with an attack. There is no lockdown as to how this triggers, which does mean that you can utilize this bottom ability to move an additional 10 feet on your turn. You can hit, shoot, move 10 extra feet. Okay? So the cool thing about 5th edition is that everything has shot on the run from Pathfinder, which means that you can break up your movement and attacks. A lot of people like to think, this is my movement, this is my attack. It does not work that way. In 5th edition, you effectively have a bar, and the bar goes boop, 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 and then you can do your attacks, and then boop, 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 and keep going. You are not locked into an action that does the thing, which is super great. You can use your movement, which is what we say here. It's not technically a move action, because you can break it up and segment it however you'd like. A lot of people forget that, and they get locked into the kind of like chess piece movement. Not beholden to that. 3rd level, plus 10 movement speed. If you have a ranged weapon, great. Or if you're a crossbow expert, super relevant ability. Swarmkeeper magic. You learn Mage Hand for free, which is super good. Mage Hand is a bustedly good ability. More wizards need to take Mage Hand, or anyone who has magical casting ability should always take Mage Hand. It is just very, very relevant 9 times out of 10. You also learn an additional spell of 1st level or higher when you reach the certain classes in this level, as shown as the Stormkeeper spell table. Each spell counts as a ranger spell, but doesn't count against the number of ranger spells you know. Fairy Fire, Mage Hand, super useful. Web, very useful for targeting people. Gaseous Form, really good for a oh shit button. All 3 of these should inform a little bit more about the identity of a Swarmkeeper. Swarmkeepers are a control class. The fact of the matter is that you have total movement control both over yourself and your enemies. Mage Hand, Fairy Fire, Web, Gaseous Form all allow you other movement options and other ways in which you can affect the battlefield, and you can control how things are happening around you. The entire kind of feeling of this class has always been, since it's been released, to maintain combat mobility and maintain combat superiority by dominating how movement is dictated. You get to move your opponent's chess pieces. That is busted good. So use it as best you can. Last 2 abilities that are any type of relevant. Withering Tide. You can condense part of your swarm into a focused mass that lifts you up. As a bonus action, you gain a flying speed of 10 feet and can hover. The effect lasts for 1 minute until you're incapacitated. You can use the feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you gain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. Flying is highly relevant. When we talked about the Drake Warden, and they can't fly at this level, the Swarmkeeper, even though it's very slow, can do it. Fix Drake Warden. Thank you. This has been my PSA. Big breath. So yes, getting a flying speed is just super relevant. Always going to be relevant. Super duper good. Effect lasts for 1 minute. You can fly and dash because it's a fly speed, which means you can take your action to do the dash action. Some people also allow the bonus action dashes. I believe you might get it as one of the ranger key abilities too. Which does mean that yes, you can move 20 feet in a turn. You have 10 turns of which to do it because you have 1 minute, as a round lasts 6 seconds. So yes, you can move 200 feet in the air, flying by bumblebees or whatever else you like, other relevant creatures. So yes, very, very good ability. Tremendous ability for the ranger as it allows you to fly. It also means that you can now fly up above your enemies and rain down death with your bow, or you can get a ranged weapon and poke down at enemies that can no longer hit you, and you have mastered combat. As you say, 3D chess is much more superior to regular chess. So yes, you come across a group of bandits, you fly up 10 feet, you stab down at them, and they can only cry as they shoot their ineffectual crossbows at you, which are technically just Eldritch Blasts. Yeah, whatever. Mighty Swarm. At 11th level, Mighty Swarm. Your gathered swarm grows mightier in the following ways. Your base damage goes to 1d8. No one cares. If a creature fails its saving throw against being moved by the gathered swarm, you can also cause the swarm to knock the creature prone. Super relevant. You've now further reduced their movement. It costs half their movement to stand up. Just saying, very, very good. When you're moved by the gathered swarm, it gives you half cover in the start of your next turn. This is bonkers mononkers. Getting half cover is insane. It is one of the few things that actually gives you a flat bonus to your AC. It also gives you advantage on dexterity checks. It's just we're gonna pull up the rules of half cover. Let's do this here. Cover. Let's go for it. Can I do half cover? Here we go. Basic rules. Let's go, baby. So, half cover. A target within half cover has a +2 bonus to AC and dexterity saving throws. A target has half cover if an obstacle blocks at least half its body. Oh, it's only +2. My bad. Is it full cover that gives you advantage? Oh, it's just a flat bonus. I always thought it was advantage. That's my fault. Me being a bad DM. But yes, one of the few things that does give you a bonus to your saving throw, even still. So yes, +2 AC, +2 dexterity saving throws, super duper relevant, which then means, yes, you can now ride the AC cap. As at 11th level with your swarm, you can have your armor, your shield, you walk in, base armor, you're going to get a +2. You're probably riding close to 19 to 20 a turn because you have half cover against all attacks. Your Bane is now sharpshooters. Sorry about your luck, kid. So yeah, that in total covers the base of the Ranger. Oof. Which is good because we're at like 930. Super, super good. Let's talk about spells real quick if people are still watching. I don't know. You could technically have a swarm of squirrels and be Squirrel Girl. You could do that, my guy. As a recap, I think that the role in combat for Ranger is to be flexible with what you are given and what your abilities are. The main point of the class, again, is to have that flexibility, versatility, and utilize it. Do not be afraid to drop your bow and pull out the shivs. Do not be afraid to husk up a shield or anything like that. If you are playing a Ranger, there is no reason that you shouldn't be carrying a melee weapon, a ranged weapon, and a shield at all times. You need to have the option and clear insight as a player to know what things are called for. If you see a monster that's grappling people and like beating people over the head, interpose yourself with that. If you are any of the relevant classes that has the ability to do so, it's always great to be able to move characters. A big thing people forget about Dungeons & Dragons, and especially when it's hot and heavy, when you're being grappled, if either of the creatures move, the grapple is ended, right? So you can walk up very easily and shove 5 feet to break a grapple for a friend. Sometimes, against certain enemies, that can be life or death movements and actions that you can take in combat. It is not always tactically positive to just deal damage to the enemy. Sometimes it can mean that your ally doesn't get eaten, devoured by a mind flare. If you ever want to ask Tasky about how mind flares work, they work. But you always want to make sure that you have options for it. Yeah, the mind flare will not care about the 25 damage you did to it when it then gets to eat your brain at the start of its turn. Oops-a-diddles. So yeah, let's talk about things. Out of the Ranger archetypes, I will always say all the optional class features are insanely relevant. Please play with Tasha's. Super duper good. What is it? Artwork proves that Asamina has a shiv. Asamina has several shivs. Asamina do be cutting people. So She's my baby. So out of the Ranger archetypes, avoid Beastmaster. Talk to your DM about Drake Warden. Drake Warden is a very cool, very flavorful class, but does needs a couple of small tweaks to really put it over the edge to be like viable, in my opinion. So with that, the Fey Wanderer I think is tremendous. The Gloomstalker, one of the best subclasses in the game, bar none. It just adds a lot of versatility and a lot of power in combat, as well as being able to turn invisible, makes you almost better than the rogue in some situations, especially if dark vision is highly relevant and sought after. The Horizon Walker, my personal favorite, just because you get to blink and teleport and do all the fun, goofy X-Men shit that Nightcrawler gets to do. Super fun. Also, you get to play with portals, and everyone likes to have fun with portals, right? My friend Galado said so. Hunter is super fun, very vanilla, adds a lot of versatility for what you're able to do. Also makes you very, 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 very tanky if you want to against multi-attacking creatures. Monster Slayer gives you information if you are a nerderton like me that likes to know the ins and the outs of stuff. Monster Slayer is the class for you. Swarmkeeper, if you want to have control over movement and mobility, Swarmkeeper is probably the best bet for that out of almost any class in the game, I'd assume. So yeah, let's talk about spells. Gloomstalker, otherwise known as Fuck Them Drow. Fuck Them Drow. Back to the top. All right, let's go into spells. Rangers. We're going to go view all for spells. Maybe? There we go. Okay, so we're going to go here. We're going to pull up the Ranger spells. So Ranger spells only. And let's see here. Advanced filters. I only want to look at... Let's see here. Spell levels. I only want to look at cantrips. I only want to look at first levels. I only want to look at second levels. I only want to look at third levels. Everything else, irrelevant. Horribly irrelevant. Don't care. For the Druidic cantrips, I could break them down, but honestly, they fall more under Druid than they fall under Ranger. If you're going with them, I will say, preface at this, you want to go after ones that give you options, not ones that deal damage. You already deal damage. You're one of the best classes at dealing damage, especially because you're one of the best classes at getting into engagement and able to get into line of sight for shooting or stabbing range for anything you might need. You do not need cantrips to deal your damage. Be smart. All right, so let's talk about spells real quick. So for first level spells, we're going to organize these by level. I said we're going to organize these by level. There we go. Absorb Elements, super relevant spell. Not enough people take it. It gives you a casting time of 1 reaction. It gives you something viable to do with your reaction. It allows you to have the damage from any damage type of your choice, which is of the triggering type, which is whenever you take acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage. So all the elemental damages early on. This ability will save you often. And I mean often. There are many times when you're fighting a dragon, when you're fighting a wizard with fireball, any crazy shit on the road, just having absorb elements on your list adds a lot more durability to what you're able to do. If you go into roleplay situations in which there are treacherous storms, thunder, magma, any of that stuff that would normally deal those kinds of relevant damage types, acid, ooze pits, etc., super duper useful. The additional thing about it is that after you've already resisted the damage, the spell then also confers a plus 1d6 bonus to your next melee attack strike. Just makes it a very versatile, very, very cool spell. I highly recommend it. It's available in the Elemental Evil Player's Companion. Really cool piece of thing to pick up. Cool thing about D&D Beyond, which is what we're using tonight to kind of review the class. You can buy just what you want out of it for pennies on the dollar. I don't recommend owning everything. A lot of it is chaff, to say the least. But buy the things that you think are relevant, and then it will... The cool thing about it is that if you only buy the stuff you like, when you go to buy the other stuff, as you want to discover more things about Dungeons & Dragons, it reduces the price based off of the content you already own, which makes it kind of more affordable in many ways. So yes, Absorb Elements, super good. Alarm, trap spell. Why would you ever take this? Stop taking Alarm, start setting watches. I hate people that take Alarm, because it's the most boring thing ever. And you know what happens? You take Alarm, and you feel real safe. And then you know what happens? Someone casts a spell magic on your party, and they kill you. They murder you right in your face. Just don't be a lazy goose. Set a watch. Do not waste a spell slot pick on Alarm. Okay? Thank you. This has been why you shouldn't take Alarm. A lot of people like alarm. I cannot do alarm. Alarm is like, alarm is, you can use it for pranks, sure, but like, it's just such like I want to be a lazy asshole kind of spell, you know what I mean? There are better lazy asshole spells, which we'll get to. One of them is called Snare, and it's way better. So, Animal Friendship. Casting time 1 level. Duration 24 hours. Let you convince a beast that you mean it no harm. Choose a beast that you see within range. Must see and hear you. Intelligence beast 4 or lower. Spell fails. Otherwise, must see a wisdom saving throw or be charmed by you for the spell's duration. Charm, by the way, is a charmed creature can't attack you. And it can't harm you with magical abilities. And you have advantage on any ability check to interact socially with a creature. Super cool. Speak with animals tends to be more relevant. I think you get speak with animals now rather than anything. So don't worry about taking animal friendship because you have better options as a ranger now. Your expanded spell list is just better. This is not a good use, unfortunately, of your level 1 slot. The way that charm should run and the way that it is run at the table are two completely different things. A lot of DMs don't actually look up what charm does. They just assume they know and they move on with their day. I recommend taking anything else, really. Beast Bond. Kind of another problem we have here. You establish a telepathic link with a beast you touch that is friendly to you or charmed by you. The spell fails if the beast's intelligence 4 or higher. Until the spell ends, the link is active, and you and the beast are within line of sight of each other. Through the link, the beast can understand your telepathic messages to it, and can telepathically communicate simple emotions and concepts back to you, like Vasler. While the link is active, the beast gains advantage on attack rolls against any creature within 5 feet of you that you can see. If you are going... if you are going Beastmaster, or if you're going Drake Warden, this is the spell for you. If you are not Beastmaster or Drake Warden, don't fucking touch this spell, okay? This is specifically for those two guys, so that their pet can have advantage on attack rolls against things. Actually, I don't think you can cast it on Drake Warden, because Drake Warden's a Drake and not a Beast. So if you are specifically Beastmaster, this is the spell you take, and that's it. Otherwise, it's just useless. You don't have access on tap to a beast companion that you can utilize over and over and over again. And since it has concentration and everything else that would give you a beast friend also has concentration, just tends to not be worth it, unfortunately. Sometimes you can have really cool moments where you can beast bond with something cool, but again, speak with animals is just more relevant. Go with that if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. Not your problem. Cure wounds. Hey, look, it's a healing spell. I will never bemoan you taking a healing spell. Healing spells are good. It is the worst one of the two that are available at first level, which is Cure Wounds and Healing Word. You don't get access to Healing Word, take Cure Wounds. Why are you taking Cure Wounds? You're a ranger. You don't smite. You don't do anything else relevant with your level 1 spell slots in combat. Being able to pick someone up off the ground is something you need to make sure you have. Take Cure Wounds. It should be an auto-include for most builds. It just, again, is the thing to take. You get a limited number of spell slots, or spells known, rather. Cure Wounds should be on that list until a time of which you have more relevant options that you can take. At early levels, Cure Wounds can make or break a party. The fact that you can heal at all from 0 can save someone's life, and they will never forget it for as long as their character is alive. Take Cure Wounds. Don't be sad that you can't take Healing Word. We're all sad about it, too. Detect Magic. Super relevant, not your problem. Being able to detect magic and faint auras and stuff, super fun, super relevant, super useful, not your problem. Someone else needs to be the caster in the party. Caveat, if you are the only caster in your party, please take it. If you are any other caster, if there's a wizard or whatever, that's their business to figure out. You don't get Dispel Magic until way further on, and they have more relevant opportunities to interact with people that are under the effects of Detect Magic. You knowing about magic does not help you whatsoever as a ranger. You can't disarm magical traps. You can't interact with glyphs or runes. You're probably not trained in Arcana. You have no relevant way to incorporate Detect Magic into what you need to do. Yeah. It's also a ritual spell. Yeah, exactly, Whiskey. It's also a ritual spell. Someone else is probably going to take it if they have availability to take it. Even warlocks can take it and put it in their spell book if they have ritual caster with the spell tome. Not your problem. As a ranger, not your problem. Ignore the spell. You don't need it. Detect poison and it's what detect poison disease, right? Okay, so this is another one of those spells that are like taunting and tantalizing to people who like to know things. Hi. Super cool to know that that's poisonous or that is disease-ridden. Awesome. You know what also does this? Good survival skill. Just put points in survival. Train survival. You do the same thing. Insight, nature, survival. Pick one. They all do relevant things here. This is a get out of jail free card to figure those things out. Or roll it and use your best intuition at the table. Not a thing you should be taking with your spell slots. You are very limited on them, so you need to be very picky and very choosy with what spells you take as a ranger. Ensnaring Strike. It restrains a creature. Super cool. It does extra piercing damage. Super cool. That's it. It's a pew pew spell. Again, you are a ranger. You're meant to be versatile. Don't worry about Ensnaring Strike. You get a smite for free now. Don't worry about it. You don't need Ensnaring Strike. Restraining a creature can be fun, but the problem is that they can always make the saving throw, strength saving check against your spell DC, which is going to be low, which means at best this restrains a creature for maybe a turn, reducing the speed to 0, of which you're probably faster than them, and they're not going to outrun you anyway. You will run them down as a ranger 9 times out of 10. Don't worry about the spell. Fog Cloud. Fog Cloud is super useful for a number of things. It creates a sphere that creates cloud. It obscures. Heavily obscured is another thing here. Let's pull this up here just so we can make sure we have the relevant text for it. Let's see here. Can I? No, I don't want to. Hold on. Remove this. Fine. There we go. So heavily obscured. No, we don't have obscured. Hold on. I'll find it right here. Boop, boop. Here we go. Rules. So, vision and light. So let's find heavily obscured. A heavily obscured area such as darkness, opaque fog, or dense foliage blocks vision entirely. A creature effectively suffers from the blinded condition when trying to see something in the area. The presence or absence of the light in an environment that creates 3 categories of illumination: bright, dim light, and darkness. Blinded. A blinded creature can't see, automatically fails any ability check that requires sight. Attack rolls against the creature have advantage, and the creature's attack rolls have disadvantage. So, with that, when you're trying to see anything in a fog cloud, immediately you're defended. You're in a fog cloud. They can't see you. You can't see them. Super fun. If you need to ink squid and get out of the way, super fun. If you need to block a guard's vision as you guys are sneaking in the back door, creating a cloud of fog, throwing it in front of said guard or rolling them into it, and then running past the guard, super relevant. There are a lot of cool tricks you can do with Fog Cloud that don't get as much screen time because people are too focused on taking attack spells and taking spells that let them know information that they could gain from utilizing their skills in more effective ways. I think Fog Cloud is a very underrated and underused spell. It is, in my opinion, a very cool option, a very fun choice to take for your level 1 spell slot. Goodberry, take this if you hate your DM. Goodberry lets you make 10 bananas or 10 pumpkins, and you feed your party, and you never have to worry about food, and all of the things that your class does for free or with the Outlander background, you don't care about now because you wasted a spell slot to give food. Also, they heal 1 hit point. Don't take Goodberry. You're a ranger, for God's sakes. Hail of Thorns. Still in first level spells. Next time you hit a creature with a range attack before the spell ends, the spell creates a rain of thorns that sprout from your ranged weapon and ammunition. In addition to a normal effect of attack, the target of the attack and each creature within 5 feet of it must make a dexterity saving throw. A creature takes 1d10 piercing damage on a failed save for half as much damage on a successful save from the player's handbook. Hail of Thorns is super duper relevant if you are going with a ranged build. Okay, the reason why you want to take this is because against goblins have 7 hit points. There is a chance that you could just murder a crowd of goblins that are all bunched up together. Super useful, super relevant ability. Same thing with early undead, skeletons, and the like. Piercing damage is not as relevant against them. However, getting any AoE early on is super useful. I will not often tell you to take Hail of Thorns. I will say if you're looking for an AoE option and nobody else in the party has one, please consider taking it. Every party should have at least 1 to 2 characters that have an AoE option at early levels. Burning Hands, Dragon's Breath, Hail of Thorns, etc. All viable options, all things you probably want to take. DMs will try to swarm you at early levels because you don't have multi-attack. It is one of the dirty things they'll try to do because of the XP calculator that they'll use from Kobold Fight Club and other relevant sites. Hail of Thorns just tends to be very, very, very good for that reason, because you can protect yourself at all times. We follow UFC rules in this house. Protect yourselves at all times. So it's just fairly relevant. Granted, they have to fail the saving throw, but they take half damage even on a miss. So again, it just kind of like works out to be a very early option and a clutch options. Yeah. Murdering lots of goblins. Hey, you know, goblins come in packs, you know. Hunter's Mark, we talked about already. It adds bonus damage. You do that for free now as a ranger. Don't worry about the spell. You probably don't ever need it again. Also, as a ranger, the biggest sticking point that you're going to run into with many of your subclasses is utilization of your bonus action. You have certain ones that are available to you as a ranger already. Having to cast a bonus action or utilizing your bonus action away for your veritable abilities for subclasses is going to be at a premium. Hunter's Mark is slowly falling out of the grade. The additional 2 potential damage that it deals as compared to your Hunter's Prey or your Marking or any of the other relevant abilities, not as good anymore. Take it if you really want to go over the top with it, but typically not going to be something you're going to need overall. Hey, we're at 50% for the challenge. Super cool. Jump. Super cool ability. Don't take it. Jumping, not good. Not good. Not good anymore. Don't take jump. It just triples your jump distance. It's not relevant. It is very, very not good. Instead of taking jump, carry rope with you. Tie rope at the end of the end of one of your arrows. Again, as a ranger, you should be carrying a melee weapon, a shield, and a bow all at all times, as we discussed earlier. Tie it to a rope. Robin Hood that shit. Congrats, you no longer need jump. I saved you a spell slot choice. You're welcome. The Warlock jump invocation infuriates you, as it should. Longstrider, super useful ability. You touch a creature, its speed increases by 10 feet until the spell ends. So, why is it a really, really useful ability? Very, very simply, it allows you, for an hour of casting it, to gain a bonus to this. Longstrider can effectively help if you have any dwarves or any other 25-foot movement speed creatures that need to keep up for a certain pace, or you guys are running to a thing. It can help that friend. It has a duration of 1 hour. The biggest thing about it is it does not have concentration. That's the biggest reason why I would take this spell. It is not here for you to be Speedy Gonzalez. I will repeat this. As a ranger, take this out of your head. Your spell options are oftentimes not for you. They are for the betterment of your party and to fill the gaps that your party is lacking in creating. You are a flexible, versatile character, and your class options inform you of such as well. Longstrider is not for you, unless you are a 25-foot runner, but you're going to get bonus movement speed from most of your class options anyway. So take Longstrider for the slower individuals that can't keep up with the rest of the party. That's what you're going to want to do, especially if your party's like a monk, a barbarian, you as a ranger, and then like the wizard. The wizard's going to need help because they're not going to burn spell slots like crazy to teleport after you guys. So I like Longstrider just in general. Snare should be an auto-include in everyone's freaking kit at this point. Snare is so bustedly good. Snare got introduced in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and it is, bar none, one of the best spells you can get. It has completely changed how I view the alarm spell. As I said, don't take alarm spell. When you cast Snare, you cast it using a rope to create a 5-foot radius circle on the ground. When you finish the casting, the rope disappears and the circle becomes magical trap. The trap is nearly invisible, requiring an intelligence investigation check against your spell save DC to even be discerned. And people have to be looking for it. The trap triggers when a small, medium, or large creature moves in the ground of the floor of the spell's radius. The creature must succeed on a dexterity saving throw or be magically hoisted in the air, leaving it hanging upside down 3 feet above the ground or the floor. The creature is restrained there until the spell ends. A restrained creature can make a dexterity saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending its the effect on itself on a success. Alternatively, the creature or someone else who can reach it can use an action and make an Arcana check against your spell save DC. On a success, the restrained effect ends. Again, Intelligence Arcana check is what you need to break it, or you need to actually make a dexterity saving throw. Both things are highly relevant at early levels. Rogues and the like, gonna get tripped up by this. Most of them are probably not looking for magical traps. Lower level rogues don't have a way to discern it, as their investigation checks are not relevant. Most bandits, most rogues, most things that your DMs can throw at you at low levels for level 1 spells do not have training in investigation, which means you probably have a chance at outwitting them. Many of them also have dump stats for mental stats. Just makes it really relevant. Put one in front of your door when you're resting at an inn. You no longer need that. If you have a curious window that you're not already pushing a bookcase in front of, because if you feel that you're in dangerous waters and you need to protect yourself at all times, UFC style, this is what you put in front of your door instead of an alarm spell. An alarm spell wakes you up so that the assassin can stab you. The snare spell will wake you up and the assassin's on the fucking roof. Take Snare. Like, the only downside is it costs 25 foot of rope that it does consume when you cast it, but guess what? You weren't doing anything with your adventuring pack anyway. Take Snare. All right, now we get into this other one. Speak with animals. Hey, look, there's that thing I talked about. Remember all those other animal spells we talked about that are bad? Hey, here's the good one. It just lets you talk to it. You comprehend and verbally communicate with beasts for the duration, 10 minutes. Knowledge and awareness of many beasts is limited by their intelligence, but at minimum, beasts can give you information about nearby locations and monsters, including whatever they can perceive or have perceived within the past day. You might be able to persuade a beast to perform a small favor for you at the GM's discretion. The spell to take. Thank you. This has been, if you want to talk to animals, there's your Dr. Dolittle spell. Take it. If no one else has it, take it. If someone with ritual can take it, let them take it instead. You don't have the spell slots. Sorry about your life. Very, very, very good spell. Very, very relevant spell. Tremendous spell. If no one else has it, this is a great spell to take. Zephyr Strike. One of, I'm going to say this again, one of the best spells you can take ever. Period. Ever. If you want a combat trick, this is the combat trick. It is a bonus action to cast. It has 1 minute of concentration. You move like the goddamn wind, and guess what? You say fuck opportunity attacks, and you just zoom between whoever you want to. We talked about it earlier with all of the setup for the subclasses of Ranger. The point of your class is to be versatile, to get into positions of which you can be the most obnoxious or rather relevant combat initiate as possible. If you are wasting a spell slot on a combat-focused spell, Zephyr Strike is the one to go with. You don't provoke opportunity attacks that on as long as it runs for a whole minute. But before the spell ends, you also get an additional 1d8 force damage, the type of damage that's often not resisted. Whether you hit or miss, your walking speed increases by 30 feet until the end of the turn. This means that you can get in, force damage attack, and get out. If you have an ally that is on the ground, you can trade out one of your attacks for a grapple action. This means you can take the strike on an enemy if you're level 5, so this is still relevant at level 5. You take the attack, hit or miss, don't give a fuck. If you hit, cool, extra damage. If you don't give a fuck. You walk up to your friend, other action, grapple them, and now you have 15 feet because you're going to have your speed when you pick up an ally, but now you can pull them out and you still ignore opportunity attacks. Voom, 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 get the hell out of there. Super good. Also, your friend can't get free struck because this is force movement. So yeah, there you go. Fun things to do with Zephyr. Additionally, you can also do shot on the run with this. If you need to get into melee with an enemy that's on the other side of a cathedral, perhaps, just throwing it out there, definitely nothing I've done with my goblin. You can shoot haphazardly just somewhere, I don't know, irrelevant, just make an attack, and you get a plus 30 bonus speed to your movement, and you can move through all of the front guard and get all the way to the priest in the back and slit his goddamn throat as quickly as possible, because clerics at low levels are murderers. Zephyr Strike, probably the most relevant and best combat spell you can take. I do not recommend taking combat spells. If you must take a combat spell, this is the most versatile one you can grab. It gives you so much utility and so much movement, which at lower levels, movement is more relevant than damage. Letting you know that as often as possible. All right, that's level 1 spells. Let's go, baby. We're at time. I want to keep going through. Animal Messenger. Super neat. Don't worry about taking it. It's not your problem to be a postman. Sorry. Bark Skin. Do not take the spell. It is a trap. You touch a willing creature until the spell ends. The creature has bark-like skin. Its AC can't be less than 16. Doesn't matter. Most people can wear armor, and you're not going to cast that on your wizard because your wizard's going to cast mage armor. It's not your problem to buff the wizard. The wizard should buff thyself. Beast Sense. Really, really neat. Doesn't have enough applications. We're going to just speed run the rest of these spells until we hit the relevant ones that I want to talk about. Thanks in advance. All right. Cordon of Arrows. Everyone loves it. Everyone likes to talk about it. You get 4 pieces of ammunition, crossbow bolts in the ground. Within range, lay magic upon them to protect an area. Until the spell ends, whenever a creature other than you comes within 30 feet of the ammunition for the first time on a turn, or ends its turn there, 1 piece of ammunition flies up to strike it. The creature must make a dexterity saving throw or take 1d6 piercing damage. The piece of ammunition is destroyed. The spell ends when there's no ammo that remains. When you cast a spell, you designate any creatures you choose. The spell ignores them. This is, again, another relevant spell that gets around Alarm. This will still awaken you to any intruder that comes near your campsite if you are too lazy to keep watch. You should always be keeping watch. What aren't you doing? But in certain situations, when you are alone and all by yourself, Cordon of Arrows, useful as a trap. I, again, prefer Snare. Dark Vision, just if you're playing Human or Dragonborn or something without Dark Vision, there you go. But there's also subclasses in Ranger that get around this. Consider those before taking the spell. The subclasses will probably serve you better in the long run, like Gloomstalker, than actual Dark Vision. Find traps, super neat. Guess what does this? Investigation. Just train in investigation if you want to care about finding traps, or let the rogue do it. The rogue should be the one finding traps. That's their job. All right. If you do not take this spell, you are a bad ranger. I'm gonna put that out there immediately. This is called Healing Spirit. This spell is so goddamn good that they had to nerf it, and the nerf is still making it the best second level healing spell in the game, bar none. You create a force, a spirit on the ground. Every time someone walks through it, they get a little tick of health. Right now, the new nerf to this is that it only triggers, I believe, a number of times equal to your spellcasting ability modifier plus 1, so a minimum of twice. But after healing that number of times, it goes away. Previously, it was 1 minute, all you could heal, and you had a big healing orgy, and it meant that you never had to take short rests ever again. As a bonus action, you can move the spirit 30 feet. Super cool. The biggest thing about this, it is a bonus action heal at range of 60 feet, which means it is your version of Healing Word as a ranger, and it is constantly relevant during a fight. If people go down, you can move it 30 feet, move it to that person who just went down, and you still have that. You are literally holding for 1 second level spell slot upwards of 4 to 5 to even 6 instances of Healing Word all off of 1 spell slot. Take this spell, or you are a bad ranger. I will find you and have Matt Mercer throw pool noodles at you, because that's what he does, apparently. This is a very, very good spell, and it makes you one of the best healers in the game at early levels. Seriously, do not sleep on Healing Spirit. I shouldn't have to say that to anybody. It's insane. The fact that this doesn't have a material component that costs money is stupid. It should have... You could make this spell cost 50 gold piece on every use, and it would probably be the most used spell in the game. It's still insane. Lesser Restoration. Super useful. Only take it if you don't have a cleric. If you already have a cleric, don't worry about Lesser Restoration. Unless you want to focus to be the healer in your group, don't worry about Lesser Restoration. Literally not your job. It cures blinded, deafened, paralyzed, poison. Super useful. Not your job. Don't worry about it. Locate animals or plants. Unnecessary. Survival does exactly what the spell does. Use survival. You're a ranger. Jesus, I almost said rogue. You're a ranger. Do that. Locate object. Can be useful if you are in a campaign where it is relevant. Again, this is a thing to kind of insight and speak of when you're getting your second level spells. Have a discussion with your DM. If there is going to be a need that you have to find a thing or track a thing or do a thing like that, locate object can be super useful. Don't take it if you don't need it. Don't be trapped into trying to use it for every little instance either. There are times when it is highly relevant and one of the best spells in the game, and other times it is a big wasted slot that you're never going to have to use. Pass over the trace. Take this if you want to infuriate and hate your DM. This is the most painful spell that exists in this game. This is a spell that says everyone gets a plus 10 bonus to stealth. That's all it does. But because of that, it means that you get through every passive perception of every printed monster in the monster manual on like low rolls. So even the paladin at disadvantage will on average roll anywhere between a 5 to a 7 if you consider disadvantage to effectively reduce your average die roll of like a 10 to 11. So at a 5, they get a 15, regardless if they have Dex's dump stat or not. It's insane. Most passive perceptions of early level enemies are between 13 to 16. So yeah, they just have to roll not complete shit, and they can, in full plate mail, stealth past everything. Pass Over the Trace is absolutely busted insane. You should take this spell. As a DM, I hate you for taking this spell, but it is one of the best spells in the game if you want to have any modicum of stealth at all, or there's ever an instance, which there always is an instance, that you want to hide and run from things. Pass Over the Trace. Super duper good. Protection from poison. No. Silence. Yes. Silence is how you as a ranger deal with spellcasters. You don't give a shit about yelling at your friends. You don't give a shit if you can't cast spells. You can control, more times than often not, how movement and mobility is played on the battlefield. This means that you can move in and out of a zone of silence as you so damn well please, especially if you are a goblin or any other character that can disengage as a bonus action, or you have any of the Swarmkeeper abilities, or you have any of the other subclass abilities that are relevant for movement. You can utilize silence to effectively pin down an enemy. You can one-hand your sword, main attack, grapple a spellcaster, and sit in a zone of silence. You have locked down every early spellcaster in the game. Congrats, you have solved the problem of magic. Honestly, silence just absolutely cripples most mages and early levels for magic at all. Super useful. It also allows you to move silently in a number of instances. If you are already past the tracing, you probably don't need this, but you can also cast silence if you need to break open a door or anything of that sort. It allows you for no sound can be passed through or within, which does mean that you can put it up right up against a bank vault door, explode it with a grenade, and no sound will pass out of that area. Congrats. Silence is so ridiculously good. Always consider taking it no matter what. Spike growth is a trap. That's all it is. You throw 2d4, you throw those little caltrips that you roll for d4s on the ground, and you pray that enemy step on them. Not highly relevant. The biggest thing is that it becomes difficult terrain, but why do difficult terrain when you can do literally anything else with your turn? 9 times out of 10, enemies are going to get there. If you can pair this with something like Swarmkeeper, and you can utilize that 15-foot movement over and over and over again to keep your enemies out of harm's way, there's probably a lot of very viable tactics to that. Use your better judgment when it comes to spike growth. The bigger thing about it is that it does deal damage every 5 feet, and I do believe there is no save for it. It's just straight up 2d4 every 5 feet. It can kill a lot of low-level enemies that have low health, and it is one of the better AoEs that you can pick. Personally, though, I think you can just find better things to do with it. There are a lot of cool tricks, though, and you can make a build just around spike growth. So don't discredit that it's a good spell. It's not one I personally want to take or want to utilize. It falls off really hard at higher levels, but at low levels, again, against goblins, if they don't have a ranged weapon, they can't get to you. If they move 2 squares, they'll probably die on average damage. So useful if you're fighting a lot of like small kobolds, goblins, other small like twig blights and stuff. Really relevant against a lot of that stuff. Friends can knock them in, so it's good for a warlock buddy with the movement blast implications. Again, yeah. Take my advice with a word of salt. If your party is set up for a lot of movement tricks, then yes, take things that benefit off of movement tricks. It's like saying I'm going to play Magic the Gathering with a dragon deck and put no dragons in my deck. It's called synergy. If you can make synergistic choices off of these things, take them, because you're going to need to work together as a team as often as possible, or you will die in most campaigns. Summon Beast. We talked about this. If you want to be Beastmaster but better, take Summon Beast. It's super good. You have to go find a 200 gold piece acorn, but it's super duper good. Getting this creature is insane. Having a flyby creature or pack tactics creature to work with you, or anything with water breathing if you're in a relevant water campaign, it scales among the best of all spells in the game. It is a tremendous second level spell slot for both in combat and out of combat. It still has a number of relevant abilities. It has a passive perception of 12, dark vision out to 60 feet. There are a number of things that it can utilize for you, and it understands all languages that you speak. So super useful thing, super cute. It does a lot of really good stuff. It does damage very well. It scales very well. It's just a good creature. If you want to have a pet, there you go. If you need to have a tank to protect somebody, I think you can make it like, what, land? Land's 30 hit points plus 2 for each spell level above second. So just a 30 hit point barricade against your wizard and impending death. Really relevant, really useful. Okay, let's talk about here. A Shardalon Stride. Bonus action, you walk, you fire damage. No, just don't do it. It's neat. Your speed increases by 20 feet. Your speed increases by 30 feet if you take Zephyr Strike. And you ignore opportunity attacks with both. Zephyr Strike is a first level spell. A Shardalon Stride is a third level spell. That's the end of this discussion. Thank you. Have a great day. Conjure Animals. One of, if not the, best third level spell a ranger can take. For a number of reasons. You summon 1 beast of challenge rating level 2 if you are a sucker. You summon 2 beasts of challenge rating 1 or lower if you need to get tanky boys out in the field. You summon 4 beasts of challenge rating 2 or 1/2 or lower, which is really relevant more often than not because axe beaks and boars are really freaking good. Boars especially have a ram ability that can knock people around, which is very, very useful. But primarily, we're going to be using it for 8 beasts of challenge rating level 4 or challenge rating 1/4, because challenge rating 1/4 has this little boy right there. His name is Wolf. And he likes to murder everything that you love and hold dear in your life. So yes, you can, of course, cast Blood Hulks, Camels, Flying Snakes, etc. Whatever. The CR1 half guys, if you get 4 of them, the Black Bear is super relevant because it has pretty good hit points at 19 hit points. You can also take a war horse if you need to have your friends ride war horses, or whatever you might need. Reef shark, etc., giant seahorses, sure. If you need mounts for your party, you can provide 4 of them immediately, which is super useful. Summoning 4 war horses for a whole hour of travel or around a precarious situation, very useful. In combat, Wolf is insane. 11 hit points, freaking advantage on all their attack rolls. They don't hit for very hard, but they have 13 AC and they will gunk up early combats. It is one of the best things you can do. The fact you get 8 of the motherfuckers is insane. Absolutely insane. One of the best spells you can get. It has so many useful things because you get all of these animals. All of them have relevant abilities, and all of them allow you, again, to be versatile and flexible for what you might need for what the situation might call for. Again, summoning 8 CR 1/8 Bloodhawks might be useful because the Bloodhawk, of course, has a fly speed of 60 foot, which means you can now have them all fly out and then come back to you. And the coolest thing about it, they're all friendly to you and all your companions, and you can speak with animals. So you can then ask them what they saw, and they can scout things for you. Isn't that neat? Super cool. Thanks. So, cool things you can do, cool combo things you can do with other classes. Conjure Animals is just absolutely insane. Conjure Barrage, it's a damaging spell, makes an AoE, cool. I would honestly take Spike Growth over Conjure Barrage. Spike Growth covers a bigger area, does more AoE. Conjure Barrage can hit flying targets. Up to you. Daylight, really cool spell, not your problem. 9 times out of 10, not your problem. You're not the guy casting Daylight. The cleric's casting Daylight, the wizard's casting Daylight, the sorcerer. Not your problem. Don't worry about it. You're probably never going to need it. Thanks. Flame arrows, don't. Just don't. You get magic weapon. Just use magic weapon. Flame arrows used to be your answer to magical resistances or non-magical resistances. Now you get magic weapon on your spell list. Just use magic weapon. It's way better. Flame arrows is just not wholly relevant for a 3rd level spell slot when you can summon 8 wolves. Just what it is. Even at half damage, still not horribly relevant. Take crocodiles and pin people in place with grapple attacks. Fuck them. Fuck them up. Counterspell no pets for you. Ain't wrong. No for you for your pets. You hate daylight not being sunlight. Also true. It's just bad. Lightning arrow. No. Does damage in a beam. Cool. Yeah. Next time you make a range attack, you do 4d8 lightning damage. Yay, more dice is good, but you're a class that on a basic action can, on average, roll 3 damage dice. You don't need this spell. You can take better spells. Non-detection, super neat if you're being chased by clowns. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Plant growth, super cool. Changes a bunch of normal plants into magical long-term benefit plants. Not wholly useful. Cool if you want to take downtime. It'd probably be a spell I would take in downtime and take up farming, because then I could actually like grow crop and like do cool, fun downtime stuff with it. You could play Stardew Valley with it. Be fun. Protection from energy, super neat. It is a spell that gives you resistance to 1 damage type of your choice. Again, take absorb elements instead. It is more combat relevant and allows you to react instead of proactively attempt to make a guess as to what an enemy might have for elemental effects. As a 3rd level spell slot, you're really hard up as it is. You have very limited 3rd level spell slots, and you have very limited spells known. Try to stick to the ones that are going to be good every single time. Speak with plants, just good, but I wouldn't take a spell slot for it, especially because you get Summon Fae right next to it. Summon Fae is a really, really good spell. Personally, I guess it's a personal choice, I think Summon Beast is way better than Summon Fae. Summon Fae has a number of abilities that allow it to be very useful. The Fae Step for teleporting, getting to and from things and being able to do and create things for you is very, very useful. Being able to grab things and bring them to you, or solving puzzles and having another body in the room is always helpful. But the problem is that they have about the same amount of hit points as the Summon Beast for land and sea. So on average, you're getting a little bit more of like a tricksy thing, and it does a little bit more damage than Summon Beast, but you're casting at a higher level spell slot. It's hit or miss. Summon Fae is a good spell. All the summon spells are very good. I do think it loses out a bit. I'd almost rather cast Summon Beast at 3rd level. That's just me personally. Water breathing, super relevant if you are in a seafaring campaign, otherwise don't take it. Water walking, super relevant if there is water, otherwise don't take it. If you're in a dungeon and you get to the one room where there's one water and you're lamenting you didn't take water walk, dude, cry harder about first world problems. Let me tell you about that. Wind wall, super duper neat. But that's it. That's all I can say about it. Super neat. Look how neat it is. It's a wind. It's a wall. It's 50 foot long, 15 foot high, 1 foot thick. You can shape the wall as much as you'd like. When the wall appears, each creature in the area must take a strength saving throw or take 3d8 bludgeoning damage on a failed save, half as much as successful. The wind keeps fog, smoke, and other gases at bay. Small or smaller flying creatures in the object can't pass through the wall. Loose, lightweight materials, etc., etc. It's cool. If you want to summon wind, that's super awesome. But you're not the sorcerer, you're not the wizard. You don't need wind wall. If it would allow you to fly, that'd be one thing, but it doesn't. So, wind wall kind of falls off. Past that, we're at 4th and 5th level spells, which have no combat relevance or relevance to us as a ranger, as again, most campaigns end, and most pre-written campaigns end between levels 8 to 14. So at level 13, when you can take your 4th level spell, knock it out of the park, kid. But you know what? Summon Beast is probably still really good at 4th level, so maybe take that instead. So yeah, that is my rundown of the spells, my rundown of the Ranger class as a whole. I think it is an underutilized class. I think people have a lot of misgivings about it. The too long didn't watch about it is, of course, the Ranger as a whole should be a combat controller and the oil in your engine of your party that continues to make things move. The optional class features, of course, allow us a lot more versatility and a lot more presence on the table, as well as an RP sense, and both in a combat sense as well, that allows us a number of different interactable opportunities. Utilize a lot of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. If you go to Adventurers League and you're allowed a core book +1 and you want to play Ranger, you unfortunately have to take Tasha's, otherwise you are left with a very lackluster class, especially in Adventurers League scenarios or West Marches campaigns. West Marches. Many of those DMs are kind of like working on various different implements every single time of the way, which tends to mean that they are, you know, from session to session might be doing completely random things. And as a Ranger, base Ranger, you're unable to kind of break out of the mold outside of your initial decisions. So with that being said, your role in the party, if you're playing a Ranger, you need to have the know-how and the mental fortitude to understand that your goal is to not focus and fixate on one thing. Okay, if I can leave you with anything here at all, the whole point of our Ranger, as we've had this talk, is that you are one of the most versatile classes in the game, and no one can tell you otherwise, especially when it comes to combat. When it comes to a roleplay situation, you do a number of things remarkably well and much better than other people, but in combat specifically, especially if you are a dex build, you have access to melee weapons, you can dual wield, you can wield a shield, so you can tank, you can utilize some of the best healing magic in the game with Healing Spirit, which can then make you more fortuitous, I should say. If you want to be a ranged character, you certainly have access to that as well. There's at no point of being a Ranger that you should ever not have movement to take on your turn, and that you should never not be carrying a melee weapon, a shield, and a bow at all times. There are certain builds you can certainly do, and you can find them online as well, where you can have a very talkative Ranger via the halfling trick that we were talking about earlier, or as well, there are a number of tricks that you can utilize with a number of feats that are available to you, such as Crossbow Expert, where you can walk around with a shield and a gun. Well, it's a hand crossbow, but it's a gun that shoots 3 times. I will say in that build, the feels bad man about it is that you want to make sure that your subclass does not utilize your bonus action as often as possible. If you want to go hand crossbow, a lot of people like to do it, as it allows melee and ranged. However, it does monopolize your bonus action quite often, which then pulls you away from other abilities and other things you could be doing. So yeah, simple as simple does. Also, I think Sword Bard does crossbow better, but that's just me. Hopefully everyone had fun tonight. I think it was like 10 whiskey for the most of the night, and we had a new folk, Vexillium. Thanks for checking us out. Everything's posted down below if you're still here. Feel free to give us a look-see. We have everything up on YouTube for all 52 episodes of Second Wake. Tasky and Scale, thank you for popping in as well. Certainly do appreciate everyone putting up with me just jibber-jabbering and talking about all kinds of whatnot and therefore. But yeah, we'll go ahead and raid somebody here. Let's raid Sofu. They're cool. I like Sofu. They're also doing art right now, so super fun as always. And don't forget Zoidberg. Oh, Skell. Hi, Skell. Thank you. I did forget you. I'm so sorry. Skell, thank you for coming out. I appreciate you, buddy. I saw the orange name, and I thought it was Teh, because Teh also has an orange name on my screen. I don't know if Teh has in the regular chat. I am so sorry, Skell. But yeah. So thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you guys get your point redemptions in. I saw we hit 50% on one of them, so that's super cool. Hopefully you're still gaining your points you're looking for as well, which should be super fun. Yeah. It's not often that we get to have Mondays off, so it's fun to talk about more D&D stuff, I will admit. It's something that I am knowledgeable about, if not the like a good voice for, I guess. I don't know. I think there's better people in the industry than me. But yeah. Take my advice with a grain of salt. What works for me might not work for you. User beware, you're in for a scare, all that nonsense. But as always, I've been Kareem Zamir. You've been our level 20 characters. I hope everyone has a great night. I'll see you next Monday for Dungeons & Dragons Second Wake, episode 53. The first of year 2. Holy crap. Oh, there's a dead dad. Oh, geez. Gotta figure that one out. Weird. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, guys. I'll be on later this week for video game stuff if you care to follow or watch that stuff. Cool if you do. Not obligated if you don't. Anyway, guys, let's raid Sofu and show them some support. As always, peace